All right, hello and welcome everybody to the GameDev show. I'm here with Dave, Patrick, Yorai, and Andrew today. We've got a lot of interesting things. We're going to be talking about a really cool new game that Patrick's just released, built in Unity. Talk a bit about Unreal Engine 5, and I've got a couple quick announcements that I want to make too before I forget to knock those out. Oh, the other thing I want to talk about today is the big Unity Spring Sale that's coming up. So, quick announcements first. Right after this video, I have a video coming out about the spring sale and some of the biggest deals on there, some of the coolest things that I saw, and a couple things that I want to kind of get myself and try to race people to, and a couple that I already have that I would definitely recommend. Like the Shift UI one. It's going to be $4 if you like sci-fi UI stuff. Definitely grab that at the very least. The other things I wanted to mention, GameDev Guild, we've got some big updates and news, I think, coming tomorrow, some big bonuses. Been working out a lot of things, and if you want to get in on that, check that out. Just go to gamedevguild.com. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was the mastermind groups. So for everybody that's signed up for those, I actually have another testable version of the setup that I'm going to use that I'm testing out this afternoon. So keep an eye out for emails today or tomorrow. I'm going to start inviting people in to help me test it out, make sure that the setup works, and then get everybody matched. Kind of set up an automated system for matching up game developers to work together. So you can get into groups, and then ideally it's going to set up my Discord channels and all the rest of it kind of automatically and make it easy. It's kind of like I feel like it's the curse of a programmer. Like you see a problem, and instead of just doing it manually, you got to like find a way to automate and build an entire system around it, which is exactly what's happened here. Like I probably could have gone through and manually done it, but I felt like an automated system where people have more input and pick their stuff would be better, and just designed and had somebody build that whole thing instead. I don't know. That's me though. I guess it probably hopefully it's not just me. Anyway, welcome guys. Welcome everybody. Please hit like, subscribe, and go share the stream. I forgot to share it everywhere, so if you use Facebook or Instagram and all that stuff, please just go drop it out there. And let's get started. So, hello everybody. Anyone want to jump in and say hi?
Hello.
That's a lot of hi.
Yeah.
Cool.
Interesting delays.
If everybody is okay with it, I think it'd be best to probably just start off with the game. I want to play a quick trailer of the game, and then we'll talk about it maybe either while the trailer's playing or after. I think we could probably talk about it while the trailer's playing. So I'll just pop it up. We'll get it going and make sure that it actually shows up in a nice big full screen. Not Dave in a big full screen. There we go.
That was a good game.
The video playing. And yeah, let's just talk briefly about this. So Patrick, you're the creator of this game. You built this all by yourself, or did you do this with the team? Or can you just tell everybody a little bit about what's going on here?
Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm Patrick. Happy to be here. I'm the main dev. I did the programming and design and stuff. And Priscilla Snow, she did the music and sound. Other than that, I did most everything.
Oh, cool. So how long were you working on this? Like a couple years or a couple weeks, or you did this like as a game jam project and decided to turn it into a big thing? Like what's the origin here in the life cycle?
It started in my last year of school, and it sort of, ballooned up from there. It's been just over 4 years now, which is a lot longer than I thought it would. It just released though, and I think it turned out pretty well. I was pretty able to polish the puzzles a lot.
Nice.
It looks great gameplay wise.
Yeah,
oh, thanks.
I totally agree. And if anybody wants to jump in with questions or just thoughts on it, I think now's a perfect time. If you guys, or if you want to just explain how the game is played, I think people can kind of see it here, but you want to give like a brief explanation of what's actually going on.
Yeah, so basically it's like a Sokoban style block pusher game. If you haven't heard of that, you've probably seen them before, where you push blocks around from a top-down view to get them where they have to go. But the twist is some of the boxes contain little worlds within themselves, which you can kind of shrink down to enter and shrink up to exit. And there's recursion going on too. So a box can contain a smaller copy of itself, which in turn contains a smaller copy of itself, which in turn contains a smaller copy of itself. This was a lot of fun to program, by the way.
I bet.
Tons of fun, tons of edge cases.
So when you go into the little box, what are you doing that for? What's the point or the goal there? You go into the little box to make it so that it can be moved and completed or something, or?
yeah, oftentimes it gives you special leverage that you wouldn't get if it was a totally solid box. Sometimes there's little kind of mini puzzles inside of there that you have to solve and interact with this big and small world in interesting ways.
Nice.
What was
Yeah.
the like? How did you come up with this idea? What's the story there?
So I mentioned I started this at school. My friends and I were making a Sokoban game that was it was just a Sokoban game where it was kind of like stealth based. There was like little vision cones you had to avoid. And then I thought, well, what if we redid that game, except keeping with the stealth theme, if you could sneak around and you can kind of shrink down into the walls and like hack them or something like that. And that was where this idea was born out of. I just programmed that, and it ended up just turning into a totally abstract, themeless kind of game.
And this is great. I mean, I'm 145 puzzles in, and more hours than I'd like to admit for actually achieving 145 puzzles. And some of them are fiendishly clever. I mean, talk about a couple of the sort of the techniques for solving these puzzles. What makes it different from just moving the blocks about?
So it's kind of fun to play this game. It was fun to make it because you kind of have to learn a new system or a new way of thinking, because it's not intuitive to think about this kind of geometry. It's because things shrink down and boxes can contain themselves. It's just you have to learn a new way to parse these levels and what links up to where and what abilities do you have at your disposal. And it's kind of fun to imagine that, because you can do things that are normally impossible in the real world.
Yeah, so and how long did it take you to build this game completely?
Just over 4 years to get it totally polished and everything. Yeah.
The space you can carry around has been really interesting to think about. How do you actually handle all of that? Like when you diagram what you're making content-wise?
It sort of got a lot easier over time. I noticed at the beginning it was very hard to make levels myself, to keep it in the head. But basically, in the level editor and the Unity editor, it's just kind of objects parented to objects, and I can just move them around. And if I ever need to move something out, I just unparent it, and it snaps, and it just kind of gets easier over time.
So you made yourself a snapping system, and it's all just game objects?
In the editor, it is all just game objects. Yeah.
But you've done something interesting here. I mean, the scenes all these puzzles aren't their own individual scenes, are they?
No. Initially they were, but over time I kind of changed it so that there's no game objects anymore. It's all just parsed from a level file in a different memory representation than game objects. And then for the renderer, rather than rendering it with sprite renderers, it's a custom rendering function to render the recursive stuff. Otherwise, that would be a big hassle. Well, it's a big hassle regardless, but a different kind of hassle.
About that, the art seems to scale really well. Is that's vector art, right?
It's actually not. It's just all the walls and stuff that need to have art on them. They're just really big PNGs, and that ended up being good enough for me.
Yeah. Okay, that works.
Yeah, I mean, I'm playing it on a huge resolution monitor, and everything looks super crisp here. I did think it was a vector system at some point. Very cool. So, what sort of bumps did you find when you were building this with Unity? What sort of challenges did you have to overcome?
Well, when I realized I wanted to do the mechanic of a box containing itself, I really had to rethink how I was doing things, and that's when I built this custom renderer. When I realized this game is there's not one viewpoint into the world with an absolute reference point like most games are. It's kind of, you have a viewpoint into the world relative to a box, which was kind of I had to do a lot of thinking and note taking to come to, but then I had to redo my own rendering system. So it starts off, you can see in this trailer, there's a box in the middle of the world where the camera's focusing on, and that's where the rendering is focused on. It renders everything outside and inside based on that reference point. A little bit confusing, but
do you render the entire game at every given point in time, or do you actually call out things depending on if the player will never see them?
Things are called out by the screen, but that's all.
Yeah, so some sort of occlusion style culling. So, I mean, I know you had somebody do the music, but it's mostly you being a solo dev on this. I mean, what sort of advice would you give? Because I know a lot of people that watch this channel are solo devs working on indie style projects. What sort of advice would you give somebody to keep going for 4 years to actually build a game and put it out there? Because I find like that's probably one of the most challenging things to overcome.
It's tough. I think it's a very individual thing for motivation, so it's hard for me to give, blanket advice. But for me, it was showing the game to my friends and getting a lot of positive feedback from them, my close friends at just various online game dev communities and real life ones. That gave me motivation to keep working on it.
Yeah, I think that works for everybody. That's definitely good advice.
Mark Brown also mentioned that feedback is important for self-motivation.
Yeah, I mean that's something that a lot of people probably don't realize when they're trying to keep their game secret, and they're like, "I'm going to keep this as I've got some secret sauce. I'm going to keep it secret for as long as possible," and they don't show enough people, and then they then go to put it out, and suddenly they're finding loads of bugs. The game's not as fun as they thought it was going to be because they kept tweaking in sort of isolation, as it were.
The I see right there, Indiecade 2019. That means you were showing this game 3 years ago or more to people in a state that was, I mean, good enough to win awards. So can you talk about 4 years, but most of that time the game was playable, showable, award winnable. Can you talk about that process? Like what was each year, like the cadence of each year, I guess?
Yeah, I wish I had a map, but Indiecade was in late 2019, and then at the end of 2020 is when I submitted to the IGF, the Independent Games Festival, and I ended up winning that award, a design award, which I'm really happy about. And the week before submitting to the IGF at the end of 2020, I just worked really hard one week and laid out the order of all the puzzles, because I had made a bunch of puzzles, but I didn't quite have them in the correct order yet. So I laid out about 150 or 200 puzzles, and that was an exhausting week. But it was extremely productive week, and I will remember that week. So yeah, basically the first 2 years, made a lot of puzzles, and at the end of the second year, laid out a lot of puzzles, and from there on, it was kind of just add more puzzles, put them in the order, tweak the order. Yeah, last year and a half, the sound designer came on, Priscilla, and she did a lot of work. It ended up taking a little bit longer. I should have brought her on earlier in the process, but that's a lesson learned for me. It's a rough kind of timeline.
Nice. What did you do for audio before that? Did you just not have any audio?
I did have audio for Indiecade and stuff, but it was audio I made myself, which it was okay, but it's not quite at the quality of a $20 game. So it ended up being a great decision to bring Priscilla on.
And how many puzzles did you end up with in the end?
364.
Wow.
Which is a lot more than I thought this mixed set of mechanics would support, but there's a few puzzles in there I would be happy with removing. So
we need one more so you can do a puzzle a day.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to answer this, but there was a question in chat about how many downloads you've had already because you just launched.
Oh,
you don't have to answer it, but if it's something you're publicly sharing, I think it's something people are interested in.
Or you could just say how many reviews you got.
yeah. So currently it has 600 reviews, which I'm really stoked about, and it's a 99% positive review ratio, which I'm also really stoked about.
Yeah, there are a couple people mentioning
for good reason.
Had overwhelmingly positive reviews, and I don't know what your sales are, but the general rule for me is I always assume it's about at least 10x whatever the reviews are, about maybe 10% or less people. So give people a rough idea. It seems like it's doing really good. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you've been featured on Steam a lot. I know I've been asked this before in the past. Getting featured on the Steam store, is that something that Steam does automatically, or is that something that you have to actually curate with them?
I'm not too knowledgeable, but the new and trending section, which I was featured on, I think that happens automatically.
If you want
if your game's
extra
trending.
visibility, you do have to reach out to them sometimes, and they have some systems for it in the back end for deciding whether you get to be on the news posts that show up for certain users when they launch Steam, or if you get a big banner at the top. Those, of course, don't happen on their own. You have to ask for it.
Yeah, just to point out to everybody, if you want to be a grumpy old dev, you have to have a beard and sit back. And if you want to be a cool dev putting stuff out on Steam, you have to have long hair and no beard. That's basically the trend. I know everybody mentions about everybody having beards on this channel, but if you want to be popular on Steam, that's it's long hair, and that's the way to do it.
Shoot, I don't have a big beard or long hair. I'm screwed.
Oh, you're screwed. Poor Andrew.
Well, I don't know.
That's why you're popular on the asset store instead.
Yeah,
you're popular.
Asset store. That's the route.
You gotta look like an artist. You just need a surfboard now.
Yep.
Funny enough, I just fit the surf rack to the car.
Here's a question regarding the content here, because I've been noticing that there are only square particles throughout the entire game, but they seem to be colored depending on where you are or the character itself. Do you manually render those as well, or are they just regular particle systems?
Everything is kind of manually rendered. There's kind of a function to render a box at a certain coordinates on the screen, and it kind of renders everything inside the box, including particles and everything.
Do you want to take this question down below?
Yeah.
About whether or not you did something else during the 4 years you were building this game. They asked, did you do anything else during those 4 years, like get a job? How much time did you actually have for dev? They're wondering, were you full-time on this? Or are you like working to support yourself? Or are you, I don't know, independently wealthy, you won the lottery? Or what was the situation there?
So I didn't quite win the lottery, but I'm thankful to have my family to be able to support me as I made this decision to do this game, after school instead of getting a job, which I could have gotten with a programming or computer science degree. I was very scared about doing indie because it's so hard to there's so many games out there, but this one I decided there's a chance, so I should pursue it, and I'm glad I did. But I would not have done it without my family support, because I did not want to have to rely on this for income. That seemed too risky.
Nice. So you were actually, because of that, able to work on it, I assume mostly just full-time, just kind of like the main thing you were doing?
Yeah, the main thing. Although I certainly wasn't working on it 8 hours a day. I can't really do a lot of creative work, especially if you're making puzzles for 8 hours a day. I can't do that.
I can imagine.
Too exhausting. But so less than 8 hours a day. But I was also working on other little projects and prototypes. And some of those I might pursue as my next game, and game jams and all this sorts of things.
Oh, nice. And on that topic, real quick, guys, everybody, just curious. I don't know about all of you, but for me, I've got like 4 to maybe 5 hours of good work that I can get done in a day, and after that, everything else is kind of crap. Like if I'm actually doing stuff like maybe Dave's probably way different. I can see Dave like working 20 hours straight and doing everything perfect. But for me, it's like after about 4 or 5 hours, the quality of the work, I can see it now plummeting. I didn't realize it when I was younger, but I can see how much it just drops off. Like I'm super productive and really good stuff early in the morning, and it just gets worse and worse and worse throughout the day.
My wife's learned my mannerisms. If I come out of the office muttering and kind of looking down and kind of doing things with my hand, she knows just to leave me alone because I'm in the zone, and I just go and get some tea and then come back, shut the door behind me, and then sit down for another 8 hours. Yeah, I'm weird, but then I'm weird, so that's just it.
Oh, who isn't?
That's interesting. I always find that I have to unless have some magical inspiration moment, I have to build into it. I'll load up. I know I won't start coding on something unless I have 3 or 4 hours, because I know that I can't just do it for an hour unless it's a small thing that's just whatever. And I got to build into it. But I did this yesterday where I was tired. I wanted to go to bed because I was tired, but it was 9 o'clock, and I was like, I can't go to bed yet. That's too early. So I just started, working on a new project that I've been thinking about, this icons thing, and then started doing this and it was working, and then I got into that zone, and all of a sudden it was 12:30. I was like, oh shit, I have to go to bed now. And so I forced myself to not go the next step because I was in the zone, and I could have gone at that point for 6, 7, 8 hours or more. But I have to get into that zone first. Otherwise, I can't just wake up and be in it,
Yeah, I just can't stay in it that long anymore. Maybe I'm just getting older. Too many kids. I don't know.
On my end, I subscribe to what's called frustration-driven development, and pretty much every time I get something that's not solved in my head, it's going to keep stirring in there until I eventually burst and start trying to work it out, regardless of how long it takes. The sleep hours kind of take the hit for it, but I am weird myself, and I have a problem where I don't actually need that much sleep. Completely screwed my schedules when I had to go to school, but now that's no longer a problem. So I get to use that time more efficiently. I work a lot in single sequences, and then I take like long breaks where I'm just listening and absorbing information before trying to go into it again. Actually, this morning, but granted it's 7 p.m. for me right now, I decided to boot up a new Unity project, drop HDRP in, and then kit bash some assets, and then start messing with post-processing. And before I knew it, I actually had to go to bed so I can actually be here and not miss the time. So, that's how it is.
Yeah, I wonder if that happens to everybody that works on just game programming, because I feel like I get the same thing in the middle of the night. But the thing that stops me now is having a wife and a baby, so I can't get out of the bed. I still get the urge, and I just have my notebook now, and I have to write them all down next to me so I can remember in the morning what all the things were that the solutions and stuff.
Patrick,
I mean, go on, Andrew. You jump in.
Okay, I was going to ask Patrick about your dev setup. Like when you are coding, what's your preference? Do you sit at a desk? Do you have a laptop? Go out to coffee shops? What's your process there?
Usually at my desk. This desk, to be specific. I don't have any other desks, and I'm not sure why I said that. Let's see. I love using Vim for coding, although that's not really a topic. That's a whole sidetrack. Coffee shops I do like to go to sometimes to get a break.
So in regards to actual task management, because you had 4 years for this, how do you actually manage your tasks? Do you just have a mental checklist? Do you have paper? Do you use any ticket logging system, even though you seem to work alone, aside the music?
Usually it's paper. I have like notebooks I go through for all my projects kind of sequentially or chronologically, which I like. So I can kind of look back and what was I doing at this month? And then in the last year of development, I sort of finally made a checklist, like here's the actual things I need to do, these 10 things. And then things are added to that list. But that one wouldn't get lost to time in the notebook.
Do you tend to copy notes to new papers whenever you need to update what's left?
Sometimes, although it's kind of funny, most of the time I don't copy over notes, because if I didn't get to them for like a long time, maybe they're not worth doing. Although some of them they were worth doing. So it's hard to say.
That's a lesson actually for everybody to learn, that if you didn't take care for a task for a long time, it's probably there's a reason in the back of your head that it might not be as important to you, and you shouldn't carry your early decisions early on to the end if you're not fully committed to them.
So sometimes these major problems I had on my list that I ignored, a few months later, they just worked themselves out for other reasons I couldn't have predicted. Like this, I was worried about the graphics optimization. I was like, oh, this is a big problem. But no, it ended up being able to release just fine from most computers. So I didn't need to worry about that much.
So you want to take a couple of questions, Patrick? There's
Yeah,
a lot
it's
of
a bunch
people
of
asking
questions.
questions now in chat. It's like starting to load up. The first one was pretty quick, yes or no. Did you look for a publisher or a Kickstarter or do anything like that?
2 publishers did approach me at different times, and I talked with them and I considered them. I got some advice from a number of experienced indie developers, which was very helpful because this is totally new to me, thinking about what can a publisher offer me, things like that. They gave me some great advice. I ended up not going with it because there was probably this game would be able to attract attention on its own, especially after it won its IGF award. And I think that ended up working out well. so far. We'll see what the future holds, and you can never know how it was the other way. But I think for my game, I think it's a very individual thing. Is what I learned from that. Depends on the game and your team and what you need.
Yeah, it definitely seems to have done really well. I'm going to pop up the next question, but first I'm going to tell everybody that's in chat to just hit the thumbs up button real quick because we're only at 44 likes, and that makes me sad. Now I'm going to pop up the next question. So here we go. This is an interesting one. You mentioned a CS degree, but they said, I might have missed it, but did Patrick go to school or did he learn from online courses? So I guess this is in two things. Did you learn, or what did you go to school for? Because you did mention some degree. And did you learn the game development stuff at school, or where did you learn that if not at school?
I went to school at UC San Diego for computer science, which was a great school for that degree. I learned a lot about that. And game development is something I had done starting in high school on my own, and it's something I'm extremely self-motivated to do. So I can't stop myself from making games. There's too many ideas in my head, and I have too much fun programming and designing. So throughout college, there was a game development club, which I was very active in, and that's where I met a lot of friends. In fact, that's where this game started. When I was wanting to, I showed it to my club, and then they liked it, and I kept working on it. So it wasn't a game. I didn't learn that game development in school. That was all learned, but during lots of game jams and lots of projects. But the computer science degree was very helpful for just programming in general.
Just made it so the more complex things made a lot of sense. I assume it made it a bit easier to get and understand those things, and probably made it easier to learn the game development a little faster.
Yeah, and just when I was starting to tackle like serious size projects like this one, I could understand like, oh, okay, this is where I'm going to have a memory problem and things like that.
Nice. Yeah.
The fundamentals.
That's cool. But you said you started in high school. What did you start with Unity, or did you start with a different game engine, or how did you start the game programming adventure?
In GameMaker, which I still use to this day. I love GameMaker. It's very good for prototyping.
Nice.
A rare and good statement.
Well, I don't want to. I have a lot of questions, but I want to let other people ask their questions as well. And I think this one you answered as well. You wrote a custom renderer, right? They're asking, does this use the Unity renderer? And you said
no. I have to look into that. Some of the modern Unity features, like the URP, but it just kind of uses a legacy function called onGUI, which kind of just renders textures at certain screen coordinates, which I wanted actual pixel coordinates, so it was perfect. I'm going to run into performance issues eventually if I'm looking into other platforms, but for PC, it ended up being good enough. So,
you mentioned using Ngui, but how do you actually decide where to draw? Did you decide to do manual calculations? Are you using matrices? Did you have to learn how to do all that, or?
I don't know I don't really know linear algebra, so no. Thankfully, I just calculate the coordinates on the screen and make sure to mask things.
Yeah. One of the biggest advantages of programming is that you can simplify out what you actually want to calculate without having to actually figure out fancy equations for it. So, nice. I was looking at how the boxes grow out of the other boxes, and I was thinking he must be using some crazy transform math, just to a local point, to a world point and stuff. And nope.
I had to do that math manually, but it ended up working out well.
The dirtier secrets of Terraria is that we also do all of that manually, even though we have fancy transform methods. We only recently started switching because we had crazy context switching from the different zoom levels, gravitation flip, and players being rotated, and where is the cursor relative to the player in all of that context. But yeah.
There's a good question. Will you be porting this to iOS, Android, mobile?
Other platforms are something I'm currently kind of considering and investigating, but it's great to hear a lot of feedback from people that are wanting this on other platforms. So
it's only been live on PC for a week, right?
Almost 2 weeks.
Yeah. This is the kind of game that my brother and maybe even my mom would want to play, but only on an iPad or an iOS. They don't use computers for that.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I'm gonna drop a link for this back in chat as well for everybody who's watching and wants to go grab it and try it out and play on their other monitor while we're talking about it.
So I know somebody asked in the chat about how you made the puzzles get harder and harder as they went along. How do you sort of come to design the progression of the actual game itself?
That's something I love doing in this game is the progression, and something I iterated on a lot. Lots of playtesting. I would try out an idea, and I realized, oh, I'm too familiar with this system. I need 2 more introductory levels. Playtest it again. And oftentimes, things that I would find boring could actually be a level. And there's a bunch of playtesting and puzzle design tricks. There's a huge laundry list of them. But if I'm paying very close attention to playtesters, I can really get into their mind and be like, oh, this is their misunderstanding about the mechanics. I'll make a level clarifying that. Or this is something that they actually wish would happen, but the level doesn't support it. I should make a level about that. And it's a whole subtle art to that, but it's really fun I really enjoy playtesting and looking at playtest feedback.
And there's something I've noticed that you do, because I've obviously chatted to you outside of this stream. It's something that a lot of people miss out when they actually talk to the people playing their games. But you let people play the game and you don't tell them how to play as they're playing when you're actually doing the testing and letting people learn and testing how your game's going to actually play out. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's like a golden rule. Maybe that's related to the silence is golden rule. I'm not sure, but maybe it's unrelated. Yeah, if you tell people like, oh, you want to do this, or here's a hint, that's not going to help you. And especially, I guess that's prominent in puzzle games. You really want to give people a hint, but you have to bite the bullet and just take notes. I mean, if you know you're going to change something and they're stuck on it for 20 minutes, then you can tell them to skip on. But it's a skill I've learned.
The general gist of that rule, for those not familiar, is that when you tell people what to do, you give them biases that the game doesn't give them. So you're ruining the genuine experience that someone that you aren't nearby is going to have. And then you no longer are able to figure out if your product is actually going to do it as you designed it to. So if you tell someone, hey, just do that, and the game doesn't tell them, well, the 100 people who are going to get your game aren't going to be able to figure it out, and they're going to have a different experience than what you're trying to see.
Also related to that, having video playtests where you either watch someone in person or they send you a video with commentary, and sometimes video, extremely helpful. So much more helpful to be than written notes, because you notice so many little things that people don't even think to write down in the notes.
Picture is 1,000 words and you get 60 FPS, so
yeah, so a lot more.
Somebody asked a question in chat about where they should get the game. I figure we should answer it now so they can go grab it on whichever one you prefer right away and not guess. They want to know, do you prefer that they grab the game on Steam or itch? They want to know whether or not it's worth the Steam rating. I'm guessing it's worth it if they leave. If they drop a review on there, definitely seems like it'd be worth it for the 30% there.
Yeah, thanks for being so thoughtful and asking which one. I've thought about this question. I don't know the answer. Maybe I would agree with you, Jason, but it's hard to tell.
Yeah, I would say if you get it on Steam and you like it, go leave a positive review at least too, then, because then it makes that 30% worthwhile because it gets it in front of everybody else. Otherwise, get it on itch if you're never going to leave one, I guess.
The correct answer is both.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, you got to get it on both, so that way you've got access to it in case one of them goes down. Now, in case Steam goes down, you need to have a backup source. All right, yeah, and somebody mentioned you can't sit behind every player and give them help. I realized this a lot when we were doing a lot of VR stuff. There'd be some games where people would tell them you'd have to like literally explain how to play the game, tell them what every button did, show them the movements before they could get playing, and definitely doesn't work at scale.
I'll go even one step forward on sitting behind every player. The mere fact that you're there is already affecting how they're going to react to the game. So sometimes just sending it to someone that you don't know and don't have a lot of connection to is going to get you way more value than asking for your friends, family, or whoever else that has some context on who you are, what you do, and how you do it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have a funny story about that. We once were working on a title that was for children, and it was where they would actually dance and play around with the Kinect. This is going. I'm going to age myself a little bit, but it's going a little bit back. And what we would do is we'd actually get down on our knees in front of the Kinect and push our arms really close to each other to pretend to be the skeleton of the children. And we, for ages, for a couple of months when we were building this demo, we would basically be doing all this and wondering if we're getting the right skeleton. And all we kept thinking about, the right skeleton, get the joints right so we can work out if the child's dancing and all the rest of it. But we didn't actually think about the problem of, are they even going to dance? So then when we actually done the testing, the first level of testing, the kid would just sit there and just intently watch the screen and not actually get up and dance. So it was more around the designer actually coming in and getting the kid up to dance than it was the actual focus on the dancing. And then when they actually did start dancing, when we fixed that problem, they just went nuts and started running around the room in a circle. So instead of all this complicated, well, this joint moves and this joint moves, then they're getting a really good dance in the end, we just went, well, where's the sort of top of the spine? Where's the hip? Are they moving? Yeah, okay, they're dancing. We're good to go. And that's where we went in the end, because it just literally, you just couldn't tell what a kid would do because they'd go nuts.
That's hilarious. Somebody wants to know if that was a Muppet game.
It was not a Muppet game with Double Fine. I can't say what the game was because it didn't come out, and I was under NDA by some huge companies that I don't want to get sued by.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Have a nice day.
And Patrick, I know you're not supporting other platforms, but have you played around with like deploying or building your game for Linux? Do you know if it works, or have you even looked at that?
I don't own a Linux computer, but it has been confirmed to work.
Okay.
It's on Windows, Mac, and Linux. Thanks to Unity. Very nice.
Very cool. How did you set that up?
Well, it's in Unity, which is one of the advantages of Unity. It's quite kind of a mature, stable export to those platforms.
So did you do like a automated build that just deploys out all three platforms, or do you just make a build manually for each one? Or
I do have a little menu option set up to build Windows, Mac, and Linux, and also Windows, Mac, and Linux without the Steam SDK for the itch build. And from there, I just kind of drag and drop those to upload those.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
And I guess it's just worth plugging this in, but when you say you're trying to make both the builds for every platform and without the Steam thing, the Steam API, you have ifdefs to exclude it, or do you do anything else to disable the inclusion of it?
Yeah, it's ifdefs. That's what Steamworks.net recommends.
Yeah. And you made an assistant script, change the settings in Unity, make a build, change the settings again, make another build, and do that, or are you doing it differently?
That's exactly it. I'm going to drop a link to that in the chat because I've shared that code. It's pretty useful.
Somebody's asking if it's complicated to create your own build. And here I think more like creating your own build process, or you're doing the menu thing to create different builds. It's definitely not complicated. Anybody want to take it on how you do this? Just a real quick overview of what they should look into to get started if they want to customize their builds. And maybe I assume Dave might want to talk about automating that too.
He has a video or two about it.
I don't have a video on this one actually at the moment.
You definitely have the one to make the installer.
Oh yeah, I do. Okay. So yeah, all right. Yeah. Okay. Have I put that many videos out? Oh, I'm forgetting. Yeah. So I put there is a video out telling you how to do a build automatically and then run a process after that build's gone out that then runs this inno setup, which is a free compiler to build installers. So yeah, there is a video on my channel on doing that. As far as putting builds out onto other platforms, you can adapt those scripts to do that as well. But yeah.
And the script shown in that video also let you see how you change the project settings per the build that you're trying to make, incrementing the version, and you can expand on that to, say, remove the Steam inclusions or add them back in for your specific builds, and just do that in batch.
and I will find the video so Jason has it because I know that's what he's going to ask next.
I was also going to ask for your Ko-fi page because I forgot, and I remembered seeing a community post about it, and I thought that I should share it. So I'm going to do that right now too.
What a clever poll.
Yeah.
Did you like that poll? I thought that poll was good.
I
I liked
voted
it
with
too.
majority,
Let me pull
so.
it up here for everybody, and I'll see the the wonderful poll. It was or how do we get that big? Let's go big. Not there we go. Giant Yori. What's the
Big
best way
Yori.
to announce on the channel that you have a? How do you say it? Ko-fi? Cough? I don't know.
Coffee.
Coffee page. Yeah, that works.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to put it out.
Poll.
Instead of just literally just telling people to go to the page, I kind of wanted to make it fun and a bit tongue-in-cheek. So I did that, and I did wonder
Polls are
whether
the way
people
to
were
go.
going to
They're a
get
lot
it.
more fun. And yep, and hop on. And I don't know what's in here yet, but I assume some stuff will be here soon. Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Isn't he lovely?
I'll be next once I'm not screen sharing and my credit card.
And look, there's me on my setup. And if for people that don't know, that's what I see when I'm looking at the thing. That's all my setup there.
Oh yeah, that's a nice shot. That actually shows what your office looks like. Because Dave's office looks nothing like what you see there. That's like just at the back, the other side of it. The cool stuff's all up on this wall, and then there's more stuff on the other wall to the side.
I guess if you're cooling down with all these fans, but I guess they're only throwing heat at you.
Yeah, it's yeah. Unfortunately, live in Southern California, so it's hot down here anyway. And then with two Titan X spitting out tons of heat and all the rest. I did, and I will eventually. I'm going to build a tube that runs up from the computer and then pumps the heat off the computer outside. But I haven't got around to that yet. So it will happen, and then work out how to remove moisture and all the rest. But yeah,
it's definitely a very cool setup. One of these days, I got to trick you into coming over here and fixing all my setup. Right.
I thought you were doing that bit by bit. You keep asking me to build little things for the back. Yeah.
Oh, I know. Yeah, we got to get that the sword mount. Dave's helping me with the sword mount, so I can get that big old sword up on the wall without knocking a hole through it.
I recommend
continuously integrating Dave into your workflow.
Everybody should go out and buy a 3D printer. So many parts of my office are built with 3D printers. Like all that wall-mounted computer you see there, it's all mounted on 3D like prints to give like diffusers that are printed in transparent PLA, and then that's attached to another piece that's another 3D print. 3D printers are amazing, and I love them.
I was thinking the only reason I haven't done it is because I don't have space for it. But then I remembered, like, I have a closet full of junk that is just there because I don't want to go through it. And I could probably just convert that into a space that holds a 3D printer. It's right next to a wall, could blow air out. We should do that, Dave.
Oh, this is me again, is it? I am not drilling holes through your wall. I will show you how to do it, but I'm not doing it because I'm not insured if I drill through something that it wasn't meant to drill through. And you'll need to put a big ass hole in there. But yeah, no, if you're going to put a 3D printer in your room, I know they say it's not toxic, but I don't trust them yet. So I have everything venting out of everything else.
Yeah, that should be easy enough. That's, I think. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, that seems interesting. You've convinced me, Dave. All right, don't tell my wife.
Just make sure to 3D print a box into a box into a box.
That's not the window I was looking for. There we go. That's the one.
Yes, 3D printing Patrick's power box, so you can actually play. Yeah, that's how would you do that? It'll be like it'll be a nesting doll, wouldn't it? You take it out and move another piece forwards to then move another piece forward. Yeah. Okay. Next,
it's like project. That car game.
So here's a quick question about your setup, Dave. Yeah. I got to pop this one up. So this is one that it makes I wonder about too, but you're probably good with it. They're talking about your vertical monitors, how they look nice for code, but if you're mostly coding, isn't that awkward to be like looking up and down like that, or is that not an issue for you because of the distance or something?
Yeah, I mean so ergonomically, these are all set up for me. If anybody else was to come in and try and use this for a long period of time, it might start affecting them because everything's at exactly the right height and the type of chair I've got and the type of desk. I also have a very minimal desk, so I can actually move side to side a lot easier because the desk is literally the size of my 68 key keyboard with a mouse on the side of it.
And everything else is mounted to the wall, right, on the moving platform.
Oh, it's all mounted. So the desk itself, so the keyboard, all the monitors are mounted to the wall, so it can.
But I mean, they're not
move
sitting
up
on
and
the
down.
desk though. They're not actually like attached to the physical desk part, right?
It's sort of, they're all kind of mounted to. There's a sort of a T frame that sits behind the big monitor, and then that has a frame that comes out the front. There's a whole video on how that actually works, and then that all moves up and down the wall on these actuators that I designed, and then I built my own controller system with an Arduino to actually move everything up and down with IoT and all the rest. So completely overkill. But yeah, no, if I'm going to sit for 16 hours on just code, then yeah, a lot of times I will move the coding window to the center of my monitor and then just code like that, and then move things off for the development. But these actual monitors to the side actually rotate in and out, so I can actually move them closer and have them more aligned when I want to use them. So there's that ergonomically. And then also the lower monitor you see is actually a drawing monitor, and I can actually lift that up and raise that over my keyboard and actually kind of lean over to draw properly, or draw in a vertical if I want to do that. So everything's kind of laid out to be altered to do that.
I noticed these are like right centered at your eye level too. These two monitors, they're like
Yes.
so it's not like you're looking too far up or down.
No.
Like when you have it, this is the thing. Like when you set them on your desk, a lot of the time it's like just way too high. You know, like the base of it's at where your eye level is, and then it goes up from there. So it makes sense. You got a cool setup there, though. Let's see. There were a bunch of questions about the game too. I wanted to
get them up.
make sure we get those back. There we go. That window. For some reason, I drag that over. It minimizes instead of just sitting on top of it. All right, let's take a couple more questions. Well, this one you've already answered, but just a real quick review of it. They said they probably already answered this, but how long did it take for you to develop it, and was it solo or with a team?
Oh yeah, I've answered Ricky in the chat, but yeah, just over 4 years, which is longer than I thought. And then Priscilla Snow, she brought her on to do the audio and just sound and music.
When you first started, how long did you expect it might take if you had to guess?
I have a feeling that a lot of indie games, the scope just kind of grows, the schedule grows over time, and this was no exception. You never know, especially with puzzle games. You kind of want to explore the mechanics as far as they go, and you don't quite know how far they're going to go until you go there. So that's my reasoning, at least.
A constant check of limit testing.
I thought it would be less than 100, and now it's 360. So.
Somebody else asked, what do you do or what happens when a player gets stuck? How do you feel about walkthroughs and and I guess what's the possibility of getting a speed run? A speed run would be doable in this, right? No reason you couldn't do that.
Yeah, and people have done speedruns of some puzzle games, although it kind of boils down to just pressing arrow keys really fast. So that part is not terribly interesting compared to other games, but it is kind of interesting figuring out which puzzles are the fastest ones to do. So maybe that part is kind of interesting. Who knows?
Okay.
And probably trying to remember all 300 puzzles so you could do that speed run. I mean, it's more of a memory challenge.
Yeah. I think you just want to. I'd want to code and automate it like a bot, just like everything else.
Actually, on that note, two things that I didn't pay attention to while I was playing the demo. First, when you try to speedrun, there are puzzle games which allow optional completion of certain things to move to the next area. And I've noticed that you have a counter for blocking the path to the next section. So are there any sections that don't require completing the entire set of puzzles in their area to continue?
Yeah, so pretty much every single area in the game is quite lenient with how many puzzles you need to get through. There's kind of easy puzzles along the main path, easier puzzles. And then all the hard ones are kind of optional off to the side, and those are never required. So it kind of, to answer the getting stuck question, if you get stuck on a level, there's always many other ones you can try. which it didn't always used to be like that, but a playtester was adamant about that, and they were so correct. I'm so glad I changed it. Yeah.
And on that note, a tip to anyone who's actually trying to make content that players can potentially get stuck on: make sure there's a number somewhere or an ID of sorts that players can just look up. For example, the Thundering Wastes in a game, or Weird Ruins, or insert name of place. Just being able to say, this is where I have the problem, what do I do, is huge for some of these games. So if you have a 360, just showing the number somewhere, are they showing the number anywhere? Or
if you pause, it shows the number. So yeah,
Nice,
definitely
nice.
necessary to look at walkthrough videos.
I have a question, but I wanted to pop this one up first and just ask it. It said, Mr. Bubbles said, since asset store sale will be talked about, did you use many assets? For some reason, I'm getting reminded of that feel asset, and that's the one that Jason Stories talked about that does like the bouncing in and out kind of
The
neat
juice.
little effects. I assume that's
Yeah.
not what you used here based on what you said, but do you want to just take this question? Did you use any assets, or which ones did you find handy, or did you use some during prototyping and then rip them out later?
No assets. Sorry for the boring answer.
Okay. nice,
But
nice and
actually-
simple, boring answer.
riffing off that one though, and Jason just mentioned the feel asset. What sort of juice did you put in the game?
So I kind of tweaked some animation curves using the Desmos online calculator, which is kind of useful for the squishing animation, which is quite satisfying when it moves around. And I tweaked those a lot, the animation curves.
And since you said that you're manually drawing, what do you do game object-wise? Do you actually have separate animation curves, or are they all in some singleton that you're just asking to get the curves from? How do you go about that with your game?
So basically, there's no game object. There's just one game object in the game, which is the controller. Where the game runs, it just kind of loads things from a level file and has my own structure of classes and objects. Just due to the recursive nature, I needed something like that. So the animation functions are just functions. They're just static functions.
And that
So
should be a
there's-
note.
Yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
go on. It was your question. You carry on.
I just wanted to say that if you are doing tweaking the curves a lot, and you're saying that you're not doing it with any fancy editor stuff, so you just stack up all the math equations to get the juice that you want for the specific stuff.
Yeah, I'll link Desmos calculator in the chat. That was useful.
And that should be a note to people. I know when people watch tutorials on Unity, etc., they're building loads of game objects and you're creating everything around that. And there's not one way to build a game, and there's not one right way to build a game. And that should be noted. There are lots of ways to do this sort of game. You can do it with game objects, or you can do it as Patrick has done, which is build these classes and have that all coming off of the one.
And also on that one, I forgot to ask earlier, but you mentioned that because you're not using any assets, does your game actually have any gamepad support at any point, or do you just have the mouse and keyboard controls and that's it? Well, just keyboard. But
It has gamepad support. It uses the Unity input system.
So it just reads like horizontal and vertical.
Something like that, yeah.
And you swap the glyphs dynamically depending on the last input device being used.
Based on the example project.
And you manually render all of that, as you said earlier. How do you actually render all the text?
Well, there's a handy function to render text.
Oh, yeah, English, right. Forgot that exists. It's been years since I've last actually called any of those functions, so it's like it completely wiped out of memory.
Corey asked a question about how you did your first level designs. Did you do that like digitally? Did you do it on pen and paper? You like cutting out little boxes and stuff to kind of figure it out, or did you just start writing it up in Game Maker or something else, or what was that process like?
So it depends. Some puzzle designers I know do all the things you listed and more. I personally design them by just trying it out in the editor and just fooling around, just putting a bunch of boxes and see what I can do. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so you set up the system before you really started designing your puzzles? Kind of like had the whole system. Was it kind of like the puzzle of making this whole thing work first, and then go on to making puzzles out of the solved puzzle?
Yeah, so basically I made this system, and at that point I didn't know if it was going to be a puzzle game or maybe like a puzzle action. So then I wasn't sure. And from there, it like once I started, it was like doing two things at once: building the system out as I realized how it needed to be coded and more mechanics, and then also making the levels alongside it. And they sort of guided each other in this fun way.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you kind of went with what was working well and what was fun, and then started building more around that. So what were your other ideas for possible game types? You said you weren't sure it was going to be a puzzle game. Did you have other like theoretical things that maybe this will turn into? Like, is it like some Portal game where you're a 3D character running around doing this thing, or were we thinking some other different 2D game that didn't have the boxes, or what were your ideas there?
Well, it would always be boxes, but it might be there might be like timing elements to it, like a stealth game. You have to avoid things, or two-player co-op where one person gets in a box and the one person pushes the box. But it ended up being compelling enough as a single player. So
it definitely is.
Yeah, or like it was constantly zooming in on a box, and you had to like get inside before you fell off the screen. It's a different game though. Like
lots of ideas around the box.
Puzzler.
Yeah. Very cool. And I have to ask, you said this started as a game jam. Do you remember what the theme of the game was for that? You did say it started in a game jam, right?
Not quite a game jam. It was just a project I made while in the GameDev club.
Oh, okay. So then what inspired the box?
I don't know. I like box pushing puzzle games. So there you go.
Just other games that you liked? That's usually what does it for most people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, sorry, let me think about all I'm asking this. When you have the, you know what, I'm going to take a moment to think about this question more.
So, yeah, I'll jump in while you're thinking about it. So what sort of, so a lot of people, they think game development is just getting the game out there and putting it out in the store, etc. What sort of support issues came up after the game went out, and what did you have to do to basically support this game once it was up on the store?
I'll probably be able to better able to answer your question in a month or two, because that's when I'll really have to be. So far, no major bugs. I really have to get on the support. It's just kind of minor issues, like on Linux. On some Linuxes, the save file location is in a different location due to how I set it up in the Steam settings. Issues on that sort, they're just like I couldn't have predicted. Thankfully, no major gameplay bugs. Oftentimes, there are those on game releases, but
I think that also speaks to how much work you'd actually done on this title if you're not having those bugs when it comes out onto the actual thing. And I think that speaks also to the amount of playtesting you actually done to put this game out, something that is incredibly important that the viewer should take note of.
So with the game being a puzzle with a lot of content and an unconventional way of solving things, did you get any players that solved the puzzles in ways you didn't expect?
Good question. Certainly, I think with every puzzle game I've made and every puzzle game other people have made, there's always unintended solutions people find. And sometimes you turn those into their own puzzles, which is cool. You're like, hey, let's make it so you actually have to do that. With this game, it's kind of interesting because you might think that there's so many possibilities you could do with these blocks, but if you played this game or played the demo, I really kept it restricted with the number of blocks in each level, it's a style of puzzle design where because there's only 2 or 3 blocks in this level, you can really deduce there's one thing I have to do, and then I have to do this next. And it's conducive to a style of puzzle I personally prefer, where it's kind of easier and simpler, and there's clear deductive steps. And there's a few puzzles in this game that have like lots of blocks, and there's like 2 or 3 different ways to do things. But some people like those puzzle games, but I steered away from that because it's just what I prefer, is to have more kind of clear nuggets that you're achieving.
Fine control.
Yeah.
It's actually relating to a talk I had with Jason Story a few weeks back regarding having puzzles versus having problems, where a problem is just there is a goal, get to it, and there are tools that give you way to the goal. But a puzzle has a specific solution that you probably won't be able to steer away from. So I was wondering how much of the game is actual problem versus puzzles, because I only found like 2 levels from the time I played the demo where I had clear at least 2 ways to solve each of them. But I ended up going with what seemed to be the most linear way to go forward. And it kept like, even if I didn't know what I was about to do, I was just going through the notions of it looks like this fits here, this fits there, I have to go through here to put that there. It felt all very intuitive.
Yeah, I try to make the puzzles intuitive, although that's kind of a separate axis. In terms of problem versus puzzle, I pretty much try to do 100% puzzle, although sometimes it's imperfect. But
So Christopher was asking what your marketing plan is. Have you been doing open dev where you're just talking about the game live? I mean, you've talked about sharing it publicly, but are you like live streaming development and actively out there sharing it everywhere? Or you just going to events every now and then, or what's that situation been like? Because you've been pretty successful with this launch, so I think people kind of want to see what ideas or things they can take from that.
I think I'm not a good person to ask for marketing advice because I'm not knowledgeable, and my game's kind of every game's an individual case, I think. But mine, it won the IGF award, Excellence in Design, which I think has really carried its why people are interested. It's also just by pure chance a very gifable game. So if you see a gif of this game on Twitter, you can see what it's about and why it's interesting, and you can share it. So I've posted a few gifs and videos on Twitter that have throughout development that have really gotten some attention. And also showing it indicated helped. And
Nice. Any other places that you recommend sharing it?
I haven't shared too many other places, but I have done Twitch development streams, but they're not for marketing purposes. They were just for getting feedback from people and just motivating me to work and just for fun.
Actually, on that note, regarding being GIFable, did you actually approach any artists throughout the development to figure out what they think about the game's art style, or did you just decide how you want it to look and stick with it?
I did work briefly with one artist who tried to reimagine the game, and it looked nice. It was quite stylized in kind of a hieroglyphics or something kind of way. But I decided just to go with the simple, even though they are lackluster. If you look at a static screenshot, I just decided it's best.
I mean, given your drawing manually, it's not entirely simple to have all the different variations that one might want. So, I mean, this part's nice. You have bubbly eyes, a lot of juice.
Yeah, I mean, the character is great. It has a life. What made you decide on the eyes, etc.? I mean, where did you come with all that?
So there's a meetup group I used to go to. Every Sunday we would go to the coffee shop and we would all work on our games together, and it was lovely. And we would just look at what people were doing, give each other feedback, chat. And one day someone suggested, my friend Andrew said, "Why don't you try putting faces on these boxes?" I was like, "Oh," and then I put a face on every box, and it was too much. So then I toned it down to just eyes on one box.
Yeah, I like how the eyes show the direction you're moving too.
Now I'm just imagining the game where everything has eyes and they're all judging every single move you take.
Just staring at you.
The game dev group, that's every Sunday at a coffee shop. I'd imagine all the other patrons are like, "Oh my gosh, these nerds." Every Sunday it's full of nerds. But that's like how valuable, Jason's talked about the guild stuff, and I know I'm a huge fan of meetups and whatnot. How much of an impact does that sort of thing have on you and the development of this game and your success in actually releasing it, etc.?
It's hard to draw a direct line between like how much success did this give me, but for me personally, they've been extremely valuable. Having meetup groups, various different ones at different times, in person and online. I've gotten great like graphical advice from Andrew. I mentioned he told me how to simplify these graphics to what they are now, and just motivation, just seeing your game dev friends and having a laugh with them, very valuable. Some people really enjoy the mastermind thing that I guess you're doing, Jason, but I don't personally do that, but some people get a lot of mileage out of the mastermind.
Yeah, masterminds are super handy. For anybody who doesn't know what they are, it's a lot like those game dev groups, a lot like the meetup that you're talking about, just essentially just a group of the same people meeting every week consistently, and just a small group of them doing the same, but all working together, and more not so much working on their stuff together, but talking about what they're working on, going over problems, helping each other through problems, and giving advice. And for me, for anybody who's interested in these, the biggest benefit is not so much in like answering a question on how to solve some technical problem, but it's usually on making it so that I'm solving the right problems and kind of like fixing direction, so that I'm not wasting time and wasting energy on something that's not the thing I actually want to do. Because when I have my mastermind group meetings, I mean, I talk with everybody about what it is I want done, what the goals are, and talk about what I'm doing. And if those things don't align, they're the first guys to call me out. They're like, hey, things you want to do and the things that you're doing aren't the same. You should probably fix that, and then give me some ideas and advice. Plus, they just come up with great advice on all kinds of different things, like the cool tool that makes my thumbnails super clickbaity now. Right.
And
You
keeping
don't
you
know what you
motivated.
don't know.
Yeah, true. They also keep you motivated because you're going along each week and you're speaking to these people, and they're like, "Well, what have you done?" And if you go in several weeks in a row and go, nothing, procrastinated sort of thing, then yeah, it can keep you motivated to get that done as well.
That's a huge one for me, because you don't want to be the only one in the meeting that didn't get any progress, didn't do anything positive. So you want to have something there to show and share. So, and you don't seem like you need that because you've got that already with the group of friends. Essentially, just a formal version of that.
And I mean, that has value because people will tend to get stuck when they're having a problem and they're trying to solve that specific thing. It's not always the correct thing to look at, think about, and extend the duration of in your mind. Talking to people lets you both reset, and also they get to judge it without all the biases that you got as you went through the process of reaching that problem in the first place, which is one of the bigger things I find when I try to talk to someone else about what I'm doing.
So Neil asked if you have a YouTube channel, Patrick.
I posted it in the chat. I haven't posted anything. I'm not going to post there much, but there it is.
Okay. But you do, and you have a Twitch, right? That you said you'd stream to.
Oh yeah, I do stream there occasionally.
You share that as well in the chat and let everybody jump in, and we'll drop those in the description in just a little bit too. And then let's see, this question from Skylar. I never got a response from the mastermind application. I did a little update at the beginning. I'm doing some testing. I just got another updated version of the automated process that made this way overly complicated, but I'm going to be testing out today and sending out some more test invitations. So watch for those over the next week. Everybody, if you're watching, I mean, just everybody will see it in their email. I'll send it when it's ready. Okay, there was a question for Patrick. What type of tools did you make to help speed up your workflow? Christopher was asking this. Did you make like custom editor tools and things to speed this up, or did you not need any of that?
Yeah, the biggest one was Unity editor tools for the scene editor to make my puzzles. I have lots of keyboard shortcuts to move boxes in and out of each other, to construct common shapes, to do kind of recursive things, change the sizes of boxes, all these things. Very helpful. It saved a lot of time. And it was interesting deciding which ones I should add. I just kind of added them as I needed them. So I didn't waste too much time adding tools I didn't need. It's an interesting topic.
Actually, on that being an interesting topic, you mentioned making editor tools and using ImGUI. So you're actually able to use that on both in-game drawing and editor drawing perfectly fine?
Actually, no. It's kind of a weird system how it ended up. I used the scene editor in Unity with all the game objects for making the levels, but in the actual game, when it's running, it doesn't use any of that. So it's janky, but
as long as it works, right?
Yes.
Is the representation different, or do they look roughly the same for you to being able to figure it all out?
Yeah, they look the same.
Yeah. Right, I'm going to drop Patrick's Twitch into chat for everybody to join.
Yeah, thanks.
Pop it up there too. I think it tries to spam filter everybody from dropping links in there, but there it is. Everyone go check it out and subscribe, follow. I forget, they always different names. I was trying to stream to Twitch today, but it broke our chat for some reason, which was sad. Well, do you want to take more questions, or you have more stuff you want to talk about on the game, or do you guys want to talk about some of the things on the asset store or Unreal 5? Anything?
Let's move to the asset store.
Talk about asset store sale for just a moment. So this one is pretty cool. I actually realized I had it up in another tab, and the new spring sale that's coming is actually, I thought it was going to be live tomorrow. It's live in just a couple of hours. Let me pull it over here. It looks like it starts in 7 hours. Is my screen showing? There we go.
Really?
Mine
See,
says
it starts
21
in
hours.
Yeah,
7
mine
hours
said-
46 minutes is what I'm seeing.
Huh. Yeah.
I don't know if
Really?
that's accurate.
Because I've got 21 hours, 46 minutes.
Yeah.
It's showing 7 hours.
Mine shows 7 hours. Okay, so if you're
How does that work?
if you're cool, you can get into the asset store deal in 7 hours, and there's some crazy sales going on. So I've got a video coming out right after this. I assume the sale's actually tomorrow though, but whenever the sale hits, there's a bunch of really cool stuff. I did a full video just kind of detailing some of the things that I thought were the coolest ones. Like I don't want to spoil them, but some that were like $400 off and more, or I think 400 was the most. So $400 off at the 80% off. It was kind of crazy. So if you're looking for crazy deals, I definitely recommend it. And at the end of the stream, I'm going to auto play you right into the coolest ones, so that way you'll be able to see you'll be able to see the ones that I'm getting and trying to get. I'm going to be racing to. I don't know if hopefully I can get in there early and get them before everyone else. We'll see though. So was there anything in this sale that popped up for you guys that you thought was really interesting or worth grabbing, or that you guys were going to try to get at the 80% off?
When you're in the asset store for 7 years, there's going to be a problem where everything that you do want you already own. But
That can definitely happen.
There are some really fantastic assets that I've used before here. One I actually used in one of my game jams.
Which one is that? We can pull it up.
The text animator for Unity. I have a passion for text that's not static, and I try to do everything in my power to make sure there's not a single piece of text that's just staying there stale. So text animator is close to my heart.
What is here? Let's pull it up. Let's scroll down, click on it, and take a look at it. I'm going to share it with everybody so they can check it out too. Put it on screen and then tell everybody what it's doing. Oh wow!
Yeah, so it's I guess I could go into UI and UX rant here, but when you have text that's static, I tend to find that people don't read unless it's grabbing their attention. And when I put text, I try to keep it really short, really to the point, and making sure people read it. When I work on Terraria, I have this thing where every time we add an item or a tooltip or any message to the player, I will try to kill off any amount of words that don't have any value, and I'll try to mesh words together just to figure out how short can I make this. And this propagates into multiple reasons, but there's the sentence where if I had more time, I would have made the letter shorter. This carries in games too. People don't want to read 3 paragraphs to understand that when you press the mouse button, you deal damage to an enemy. There are memes about this in the more competitive games where, for example, if in League of Legends, they had simple characters that like, this ability deals damage in a line. This ability deals damage if the enemy is rooted and it does extra and also stuns them for 3 seconds and also pulls them in. And there is one character who has one ability that has more lore than 2 other characters combined.
Wow.
And my point here is people don't want to read that. You get into a game, you have 1.5 minutes until you actually start fighting the enemy. You don't have the time to read all of this, comprehend it, and then being able to use it. So I'm trying to kill off as much text as possible and keep the players immersed in what they're trying to do.
And this helps make it nice and flashy.
Yeah.
I know for me, the thing that I really hate in games is when I try out some new mobile game and then it wants me to read like a full book of stuff before I can even click anything, and then click through to 12 different menus and read a bunch of paragraphs. Like, definitely never playing this thing. Like, just quickly uninstall it. It drives me insane.
Yeah.
Recently restarted Monster Hunter Rise and it had like 30 pop-ups in the first 2 minutes.
No, the drop-off curve on mobile games is harsh enough, but if you put tons of text on screen in loads of pages, people just aren't going to play your game. There's just not an attention span that's going to keep them there for that long.
It's not even about the attention span, it's about the wanting to do something and getting things in the way of the person who wants to do it, which is the antithesis of what you want to do. You want someone to have a good time and do what they want to do, let them actualize. And as part of that, I just wanted to say that when you're reducing the amount of text, you don't stop them, but you're also getting another thing, which is you reduce the costs of something being wrong and you having to update it. And even better, if you're ever doing localization, you're actually keeping the localization task smaller. And that scales really, really a lot as you make more and more things in your game, which with Terraria being 10 years and 5,000 items is meaningful.
And on that point, I mean, picking up on something that Jason said as well, when you have like a tutorial where there's 5 or 6 pages and you're telling somebody how to do something, and then you're going to go on to the next page where you tell them how to do something else, and then you're going to go on to the next page and tell them how to do something else. Does anybody actually think anybody remembers the first thing you told them how to do? And then once they get to the third page, they're skipping through the rest anyway, so they're not going to learn how to play your game. So then the game becomes even more frustrating. And this is where the idea of interactive tutorials comes in, and teaching people as they play how to play your game and teaching them mechanics.
Also, a life hack in that regard. If you want people to just do stuff and not get in their way a lot, put visual indicators in your game and then just show images of what's about to happen and what button to press. Easiest thing ever. It's like a life hack for any console game that I play. They just show you an image and say, press the button when that thing's happen. Done. And actually, on that note, Fortnite has a GTC talk about UI and UX. And one of the big things that really should be hammered into every game dev ever is that you want to reduce cognitive load of players having to remember what button to press to do what, and just show hints near the UI of what they want to interact with. If there's a special command that you can use by pressing triangle, draw a triangle near that command. It's not hard. You don't even have to localize a triangle. Sorry, it's just a big thing for me.
Jason, you're muted.
I got to unmute myself. Yeah, I just real quick wanted to jump in and say thanks, James, for registering for Game Dev Guild. I had the screen up for a second. It's just gamedevguild.com if you are interested and want to check it out. And I wanted to pop up this deal right here, Andrew, that I thought was cool, because this is an asset that you've mentioned many, many times about how awesome it is. And it's also going up on the 80% off, which I think is a perfect opportunity for me to grab it. I thought I had it, but maybe I'm just not logged in on this account. But if I don't have it, I'm definitely grabbing it on this account. If I have it, it must be on a business account from a previous employer, so I need to get it again. Did you want to tell everybody what this asset was?
So this is at the GDC Unity released that Gaia, or they announced the Gaia thing, and they talked about this asset being used in that demo to make fog in URP, essentially, which I don't own the asset either. I like the Publisher Connect. They always seem like they make cool stuff, but I don't. Turns out I went through the same process with like, I thought I owned this, but I guess not. I've never used it, but my understanding from the GDC conversations is that they couldn't have made fog in URP without this. So I guess the URP doesn't have volumetric fog at this point, but this asset enables it, which is kind of like is the perfect use of an asset to enable something that you can't do otherwise. So
Yep, and I just dropped the link for that if anybody wants to check it out. It looks like it's already half off though. Just kind of crazy.
maybe
there
It's
might
marked down and
be
then
an
on
old
sale
version of
again.
the
Upgrade.
asset that you have, or
yeah, there could be an upgrade discount. Maybe you have the first one and this is a second one.
That's probably the case. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, because that's probably what it is. I have the previous version, and that's why I'm seeing the upgrade price. But 80% off of 65 seems good to me. So definitely.
I just
jump
want
on
to
that.
say almost all of the assets from Connect are amazing, and just it's a case study for me regarding the VFX. He has like a ton of advanced things in there. If you
Maybe
check
we
the
should pull up
publisher
some
profile.
of his other assets real quick and check them out. I wonder if any. Oh, Liquid Volume Pro is also going on sale tomorrow. Oh, that actually looks really cool. I'm gonna pop this one
Beautify
up too.
is one of the bigger ones, specifically because if you just want something that looks good really quick, Beautify does that.
Beautify.
And
Let me go check that one out. I got to grab that Liquid Volume one. I was actually talking to an artist about doing some liquid stuff earlier today, so that seems like a perfect opportunity. What was the one called down here? Beautify?
yeah, Beautify or Beautify 2.
Did I pass it or? Let me see.
I can't see your entire
Beautify
window, so-
HDRP?
Yeah, there's Beautify 2 and Beautify HDRP, different, but yeah.
Okay, let's check out the HDRP first.
It's
What does
subtle,
this one
but
do?
it's true. So it's post-processing, as it implies, just does what you expect. Beautifies everything for you. It has some knobs to get better visuals, but the entire point is if you want something that looks good quick, you just drop that in, and it does almost all of the work for you.
Oh, nice. So you can kind of see it there. I tried to pull it up full screen so everybody can watch.
Yeah. It has some tools that the Unity post-processing, specifically European HDRP, don't have, so it has the value there. I do want to say that if you don't want to drop money on that kind of stuff, there's also the Kino GitHub post-processing, which I tried literally today, and it's fantastic.
Nice. Yeah, this looks really
Yeah.
pretty.
Yeah, there are some effects that you don't find in either URP or HDRP that are like really desirable, and I found it kind of weird that they don't have it. For example, a sharpen effect, especially after you do blooms and depth of field and all of that. Adding a sharpen really makes an image crisp, so love that stuff.
It's very cool. I just shared it in the chat as well. If anybody wants to check it out. Go back to normal size again. I don't know, are there any other things you guys are really excited about? Like I said, I don't want to share my list because it's coming up right after the video, so I don't want to like spoil my list of exciting assets. But if you guys have some that I missed, I want to make sure I get them because that Liquid Volume Pro alone, just stumbling on that, and now I want Beautify, but it's not on sale. So I'm definitely gonna get that Liquid Volume though.
So I have almost everything I ever wanted from the store already, so I don't have much to recommend in terms of.
Is there anything that you
don't
have
own yet.
that's on sale now that you think everybody should get, like something that you use relatively regularly that is going on sale?
If you use URP, Stylized Water 2 is fantastic. If you want to learn VFX, anything from Sign VFX is great. The top-down effects are going to be on sale.
This is the stylized water. Ooh, that is pretty.
That creator, Staggered Creations, has amazing things if you just go to their publisher page. It's like, this is where I go to when I want to feel bad about everything I don't know about post-processing and about shader code.
Oh.
Like, this is the place I go to learn.
It looks pretty.
In one of the projects I used earlier, just trying to make like a nice Devil May Cry-ish combat, Gruzam had the Powerful Sword pack. That one has really good power fantasy animations.
What's that? What's the asset called?
Powerful Sword pack. Greatsword plus Katana. And right near that, there's also Magica Cloth, which everyone should have. And this is the currently probably uncontested dynamic bone / cloth solution, specifically because dynamic bone doesn't have as much capability as that. So
That's the dynamic cloth. Sorry, I'm trying to get all these up here and quickly. So this is the powerful sword pack. This is the. You want to just tell everybody real quick again what this one is?
yeah, so it's just a pack of animations, really nice power fantasy ones for action games. I find that a lot of the animations on the asset store tend to either be in place or really weak on energy, like somebody just took a mocap but didn't seriously think about the characters going to try and be in the scene fighting. And these animations are like over the top, trying to move your entire body with the weapon. It's fantastic.
And then the other one was the Magica cloth.
Yeah.
That one out.
Like stuff that are no-brainers to just drop into a project and use. We talked about Morbid Metal before, that HDRP Unity game that's being in development, the really actiony pretty one.
Yeah.
It uses that for the character's cloth, so that's one example that you can look at straight away in production.
And this one's cheap too. It's only $25 before the discount. So it'd be like it's gonna be $5. Yeah. If I don't already have that, I'm definitely grabbing it. We'll see.
Yeah.
So I'm logged in on the right account.
The rest of the assets that I'm seeing that are definitely worth getting are kind of more niche, but I guess I should mention that Impossible Creations, we talked about them before, has some of the assets on sale, specifically the spine and tail animators. So that's good if you have anything that tries to use that. The tail animator specifically can also be used for like dynamic tentacle kind of stuff or wiggly things. It's really nice.
I was going to mention Impossible as well. I need to do tutorials with those, because almost every single one of the Impossible stuff would make my characters look a lot cooler. And
it's not even you don't even need a tutorial. It's just you literally drop the component, press like 2 to 5 buttons, and it's already instantly better.
Right. I'm working on adding beards and stuff to my characters, and one thing I wanted to do was beards that kind of flow, because some of them are pretty long and they've got hanging things. So I got Impossible was kind enough to provide me some vouchers, and I loaded up their I forget what it's called. It's got a funny name, but it's basically their movement one, and it just worked.
Leading.
Yeah, and I wrote to him. I was like, "This is the best experience because it works in 3 minutes, and you don't have to. There's no learning involved. You just load it up, add it, and it worked." Like, it's one of those stupid things that you don't expect to happen, because there's always something that you have to figure out, right? But in this case, there was nothing. They just make really great content.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on that there. I've used almost every single asset Impossible makes, and I genuinely don't have any single one that I hate. I love them all.
Yeah.
The only problem is that when you try to add a lot of them and you try to stack them really nicely and you try to make a lot of really custom scripts, you have to figure out, so I update this, then I update that, then I update this, because you need custom update order. But that's really niche. That the assets do so much work that I don't ever want to give them up. I specifically had a problem with the Unity animator package that got recently released. The name is escaping me now. The animator rig, animation rig system, and the Impossible assets. And I generally decided, you know what? I don't need animation rig. I will use Impossible. This provides more value than the Unity default stuff for the cases that I was working on.
Their stuff looks really cool. Somebody mentioned in chat one of the other packs, and I figured I'd just to also check if anybody in chat has one that they're really excited about or think people should check out. Just tell us what it is, and I'll try to pull it up. So this was the Cinti one. Polygon Fantasy Kingdom. So I'm typing it out in YouTube chat as I say it. So this one was out 80% off, and they paid full price. So big savings available on that. $279 at 80% off is so Those are the ones that I like to get, like the big giant bundles, so I can save a ton of money on it all at once and get it for less than I would pay for a single character normally.
And we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the great Infinity PBR stuff going on.
You would be remiss.
That is,
And the best for last, right?
Definitely
Yeah.
true.
So there's a bunch on the Lightning sale. They're later in the lineup. There's the I wrote these down on my Discord. There's the low poly monster bundle, 20 characters, which I'm working on low poly monster bundle 2 now. We've got 4 characters done in that, and I'm waiting until we have like 6 or 8 before releasing it. But that's 20 characters, and it's going to be $20 at the 80% off. So $1 a character. You should sell it at the dollar store. But
you'd have to raise it to $1.25 now.
That's right. Inflation.
I've actually stopped buying my candy at the dollar store because it's now more expensive than every other store, like Target and stuff.
So what we're trying to say is your stuff is better value than the dollar store.
Yes, way better. And plus, you can make a game that makes you cash money, and then you can't do that with the dollar store stuff. That stuff will break if you try to do that. So we got that, and then also Monster Bundle number 6, which is the Medusa, Minotaur, Troll, and Cobra Snake is going to be on a Lightning deal. That one is also, a screaming at 80% off. It's ridiculous. At 70% off, it's still ridiculous, which is after the initial licenses are sold, they're going to be 70% off, and that's a great deal too. And then there are also Devils, the standalone Devils. If you don't want the Monster Bundle, then just get the Devil. But the Monster Bundle number 5, which has the Devil in it, is 50% off during the sale, as well as a whole bunch of other stuff. The big ones being Monster Bundle 5 and 2 will both be 50% off. The Medieval Town and Village, the Character Portraits Complete Bundle, and the Battle Sounds Library with magic and melee sounds, which of course are insanely customizable, as you would expect from anything Infinity PBR.
That's what I wanted to show here real quick. Some of the customization on one of these characters, so people haven't seen it. Like, it's not just one character; it's a billion characters with randomization and customization. These are just sliders that you drag or adjust with one line of code.
And you can
player actualization.
There's a randomized function, so you can randomize every single enemy you create. So just one line of code, spawn it, randomize it. Now all the devils look slightly different, so that they don't all look exactly the same, which is really cool.
You can make it your player and will allow them to customize their character, right? Adjusting the body size and shape and all that stuff.
Yep. And then go ahead.
There's actually even more value in the ability to customize characters, which is even if you want the same enemy to always look the same, you get to use those blend shapes to make really more interesting animations. If the enemy gets buffed, for example, you can increase the shoulder sizes as they do an animation with the VFX and everything. It adds value to the experience of it.
Yeah. And that's where like the big pack of mine is the RPG Character Complete Bundle that has all the humanoids, the goblins, the dragons, the all the current wardrobe packs, the sound pack as well. I think it's got 12 packs in it. It's going to be half off, so it's saving like $180 or something. And that's the one with all the humanoids where, yes, absolutely, if you have a stronger character, you can make them more muscular. If you have a weaker character, you can make them less muscular and customize it entirely so that your characters are basically, even their faces can be morphed and stuff, so you can get different looking faces and stuff. And, any of the character generation stuff that you see in all these, I was actually, when I played Elden Ring, I thought to myself, mine is better than this. My customization.
Your character customization?
Yeah. I felt their faces looked weird, and they made some mistakes. Like, it's very easy with face blend shapes and mesh morphing to make very weird characters, and you can do that with my stuff as well. But theirs just went really weird, really fast in a production game, and I was like, that somebody should have said, "Hey, this looks weird." But so I thought mine was better. I'm biased.
Some of that is intentional, as far as I know.
Oh, okay.
One thing I will say, though, regarding Elden Ring, the characters are actually bigger than the player for the most part, and there's a really interesting video about it for someone in Jason Story's server linked. Specifically, most characters will be bigger than the player, just so that they will fit in the camera better, because of the the behind the head kind of view. You don't want the character obscuring the enemies, so they ended up being slightly larger, so they always fit above the characters, so you can never miss them.
So I'm going to interrupt our asset store chat for a second to hit this super chat that Patrick just called to my attention. Thank you for that. So Thought Experiment asked about assembly definitions, and I want to know your guys' answers to this. They want to know, are assembly definitions worth the trouble? Aside from being forced to keep your project organized, which is because for people who haven't used assembly definitions, when you set them up, you can only refer one way. So you can only reference things one way. So things that rely on one thing can't then have the other thing rely back on them and end up with circular references, which you get into programming stuff, eventually you realize can be a giant pain in the ass. So aside from that, do you notice any benefits like with compilation improvements or compilation time? Are there any other benefits that you're getting?
Yes, specifically for things that are script heavy that you import into the project. If they don't have assembly definitions and you give them one, given that sometimes it's not a clear process and you have to fix things out, it tends to show meaningful improvements depending on how large your project is. And for the bigger script assets on the store lately, I've been seeing that they all converted to just giving you DLLs or come with assembly definitions ahead of time. That is fantastic in my opinion, and some have buttons to generate if you don't start with it. Dutwin does that, Odin does that, the popular assets, and those have significant recompilation time increases. So if you had to also rebuild them, that would be critically unappealing. So yeah, I
What
definitely
about
know
your
the
own
same.
stuff? Do you add assembly definitions to your own like parts of your
Yeah.
code and separate that out too?
Generally speaking, I tend to use an assembly definition for my code always, specifically because I don't want to have to compile more than just the thing I changed. But I don't mainly do it for the compilation times. I just enjoy the benefits of that. The main benefit is the different dependencies that you might have depending on what kind of platform you're building into, which is where I find the most value comes in. Because you can decide that this assembly definition works for, say, Linux and not Mac. And after having worked with Terraria, I learned that there are a lot of things that I like to separate out into a platform service kind of deal for specialized functions. Because, for example, in Terraria, we do this thing where as you finish creating a world, which takes multiple seconds, sometimes up to a minute, we flash the window handle in the taskbar for the player. Also, when you respawn or after a world loaded, we do that because we tend to find that players will tab out if it's taking more than 1 or 2 seconds these days.
Mhm.
So it's meaningful to tell them when without them having to constantly check. It increases user confidence. And those kinds of things, depending on the implementation, only work on one platform at a time. So getting some of the definitions in has been convenient for those kinds of functions.
Is that kind of where you set those lines though, of when it's going to be something that you think you might switch per platform, or do you do it even inside your project, just layering things out to force structure on yourself too?
I tend to do it by the platform. I rarely try to separate my own code from each other because I like iterating quickly. And if I want to hack something for a moment, I will.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a zero hacks policy. I don't find I in a production project I will find it immensely valuable. But when I'm trying to make something for myself, for trying something out, definitely no zero hacks policy. I will just make it work.
Nice. I'm the same way. I don't make assembly definitions for things until I need to separate them off, or if there's some external asset that's a lot of code and slow. And for those, I think it's probably the easiest and most obvious use case. You got an asset that you pulled in, you're not going to be changing that asset to call your stuff, so you may as well add an assembly definition there, especially if there's a decent amount of code there. I think Dave's almost ready to jump back in with us. Somebody was wondering about UFE2 Pro. That one's on sale too? That's the fighting engine, right?
Yeah.
Let me pull that one up.
I keep buying it and telling myself that one day I will just buy the source and just read through it, but I never do.
Oh yeah. This is the universal fighting engine. Have any of you guys used this one yet?
No.
Ironically, I love filler games where you fight a lot, but I don't like actual fighter games.
Interesting. This could be kind of fun. I feel like I'm gonna add this to my cart too. If I can get it at 80% off, I could make something fun for the arcade cabinet for the kids. Let them play some goofy game at 80% off.
A unicorn beat 'em up.
That's kind of what I was thinking, to be honest. Yeah. Like ponies versus Earth unicorn, or Earth ponies versus unicorns versus Pegasuses. You got a battle. Go pick the one you want, and then they like ram each other with their horns or whatever. I don't know. She would love it.
You see, what you actually want to do is make them send sparkles and hugs.
Oh no, she likes them to hit each other and knock them out. She likes to play Street Fighter. She also likes the taunting. So I guess if it was just a game where the ponies taunt each other and they don't actually hit each other, it would work too. But with the fighting engine, I feel like I got to add in the fighting components. It's the point of having the fighting. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to justify buying UFE 2 Pro.
Like the what was it? Is the mini game, the sword insult game from the original Monkey Island?
I don't remember that one. Hold on. Let me pull
Really?
that up. I'm going to pull it up on another screen because I have no idea what Google will show.
Yeah, no, I mean... Funny, on that topic, they just announced they're going to be building another Monkey Island with the original dev.
Oh, nice. Oh, I saw that, actually. I saw the post on Twitter about that.
Unrelated, I missed that until now, but one other asset that's really worth bringing up is the Asset Hunter Pro. That's really good for keeping projects clean after you import a bunch of stuff.
Oh yeah, let's jump that on. You want to tell everybody what this one does?
Yeah.
One,
so, right? Yeah.
All right. It's not on sale
though. It's showing that it's starting in 3 days for me.
Weird.
Oh wait, it's a different icon from what you're saying. Yeah.
There's two versions of it. Got it. I didn't realize that.
All right. So Asset Hunter, effectively speaking, when you import assets and you're building a game, you may end up not using all the assets that you have. And when you do so, Unity doesn't exactly always know what you want to include, what you don't want to include. And even if you don't include it, it might end up affecting your editor times because it has to be accounted for. For example, with scripts that self-validate, they will still run on the assets the entire time. Asset Hunter lets you try and figure out what assets you don't use, how much memory they take, both in project and all that, and just it shows you the information and respects your decision of what you want to keep, what you don't want to keep, and it lets you know where most of the hurdles will be and lets you remove those hurdles. So I tend to find that really, really appealing.
Yeah, seems cool. It looks like it backs up your stuff too before it deletes it, so you can undo it if there's a problem. I mean, you should have source control set up, but still, it looks like it handles it.
I mean, I didn't even look into any backup feature, but yeah, version control all the way, regardless of what assets you're buying.
Yeah, this does look cool, and I know Odin is doing something similar. They have another tool that it doesn't. I don't think it found extra things. It found missing references too, which I thought was kind of cool. The guys at Serenix that made Odin were releasing a new one a coming out pretty soon. I think they've announced it already, but I'll have to check that one out. Somebody had a question about the replica voice AI stuff. I've used it, but not in production, and I was curious if anybody here has. Have you guys used replicas, that voice service? Let me just pull it up here. That allows you to type in text and then generate audio.
Yeah, I've used it for demos. I've got a voices package for the game modules that lets you kind of get more variety out of voices, and I used these voices in that demo. And they just released a new update. I got an email about last week, I think, where they basically redid the model. So if you've previously exported voices, you have to re-export them because they've updated the AI model and they've gotten rid of a lot of the robot artifacts. I don't know, the robot sounding jitters or whatnot. So the new model is actually quite better. The video they had, comparing the two, is substantially better. More inflection in the voices. You still can't control completely the inflection, of course. That's probably a much more challenging problem to solve. But for prototyping, no way that this is not amazing. For shipped titles, it really depends.
Yeah, I think it's better than not having a good voice actor. Of course, if you have a short enough set of dialogue and you can get a voice actor to do it, you probably end up with something more exact for what you want. But I think that's a dramatic amount more work than using replica, getting it in there, and filling it in where it works.
Yeah.
On that note, going back to the rant about text, voice acting helps a lot in getting players' attention and making sure they actually retain some of this, because they can ignore the text that they're seeing and just keep spamming continue, but they can't ignore a message that's being voiced out to them as easily. They will hear it whether they like it or not, because unless you cut out the voice as you let the player press, it's going to be there. And it's going to eventually either be a signal or be retained. It has value. As for whether I'll ever use it in production, get back to me on Terra 1.7.7.3. Yeah.
And then Patrick had a question. You want to just ask it right now? We'll just talk about it.
Yeah. Okay. First, I do want to mention back when Jason, you were talking about the pony fighting game. That actually there is one. It's called Them's Fightin' Herds on Steam.
Oh, I'm gonna have to grab that and check it out.
Yeah, you might like it.
Oh, there's a game for everything.
I know. Most of the problem that I found, the biggest issue I found with pony games for my daughter was that most of them were just like what we were saying, with tons and tons of dialogue that they wanted her to read, and she can't read. She's 4, and then like all these menus and stuff. I'm like, how is this going to be a game for a 4-year-old? Like, I can barely figure out what I'm doing here. She just wants to move around, put glasses on, and make the ponies punch each other. This looks cool though. I'll check this out.
Standard things.
There we go. Now you can see the ponies fighting. She would love this. I'm putting this on her Street Fighter console today. This would be great.
See, Patrick, you're advocating violence.
Pony violence too.
Pony violence at that. Brilliant. Love it.
It's very cool.
Okay, but I did want to ask the group. So I've only used Unity assets myself a handful of times, one or two times really. I'm curious how it fits into just in any projects you work on. How does it fit into your design process? Do assets sometimes inspire design ideas, or are they usually kind of just there to enhance the game, or how does it fit into your design process?
Assets definitely inspire mine. So I go both ways, where if I need something, I'll look and see if an asset exists so I don't have to do it myself. And the flip side, when I see assets, especially I'm a sucker for environments and pretty things. I've always been. I used to buy so many environments that I've never ever used that are now outdated. Because every time I see one, I want to make that game. Like it inspires the visions that are already in my head. This fleshes them out, and then I want them. And I'm like Gollum. It's my birthday. Wants it. Yeah.
I think that's pretty common. It happens to me too.
Yep.
On my end, I tend to chase what I call easy wins. I tend to try and find potential in everything I work on. So if I see something that I do, and even by mistake, I get some appealing effect, I will note it down and I will consider whether it's worth expanding or including. Just like you mentioned, when you make a puzzle and you see something unexpected and you want to turn that into another puzzle, I do the same thing, but with assets and whatever happens during the usage process of these assets. So, for example, I had one game jam where I used the text animator, and for some stupid reason, I tried to use really large scale pop effect when the player got something, and that was like a typo. I wanted to do 2.4, but I did 24, but it got me something that looked really exaggerated and fun. And I figured, hey, I really want to do something with that, and I ended up adding a mega pickup that used like a really gigantic scale because it felt really good when you got that. So that's the kind of stuff when I talk about in terms of easy wins. And because I saw the scale, I ended up making a whole new game mechanic, the Mega Pickup. I only let like 4 friends play it prior, but it had really good feedback in regards to how it was used. So yeah, I will do that a lot. Just chase easy wins once I start importing assets. No way I'm
Yeah.
giving that up.
Yeah, for me, there's a couple of things. Like if I see an asset that's just gorgeous and I think, oh, I might have something down the line that needs that, then I'll purchase it, especially if it's on sale and stuff like that, because I know how much it costs to hire people to create that stuff. So even if I don't end up using it, the amount of times I have to then hire somebody because I don't have something along that line, you have to weigh those sort of things up. For a lot of the production games that I have ongoing, they're actually produced with artists. So I pay artists directly for those rather than using assets because I want unique assets for those particular things, especially when it's something to do with the player. I don't really want the player themselves to be in something that's going to be in a lot of different games because that speaks to the branding of the actual game itself. So, for instance, the turret title I have coming up, the turret itself is completely unique, designed by a very good concept artist called Gramuk, and then changed over to hire an artist to basically make that for game ready asset and then load that up. But because that is what you're in and you're holding the controls, you're doing everything with that, I want that branded to the game. So I want a very unique thing for that. But then when you look at the spaceships out and about, I have a lot of space junk that's flying around. Well, I'm just going to buy that in from the asset store because I don't want to spend a lot of money hiring a lot of artists to do a lot of that stuff because it's all off in the distance. It's all low poly anyway. Low count and not low LOD, as it would. So yeah, I have that sort of thing going on. But I do think if you're going to have your main character, then that main character should speak to the brand of your game somewhat. And if you can find that from an asset store and then just alter it or whatever, then great. But yeah, for me, unless it's a game jam. If it's a game jam, then yeah, I'll just rip everything off the asset store.
Or you just haven't gotten to that part yet, too. People just know,
yeah,
like,
placeholder, gray box,
build it out, and then if you're like, this is going to be a game, that's when you want to make sure to find an artist to really customize your main character and make it cool. When you decide like you're actually going to do it. But how do you find artists? What's your way to do that? I mean, your method probably isn't going to match for everybody else. But
no,
what do you normally do?
I hunt them down. So basically, I go from word of mouth a lot of times. So somebody will say to me, I've just worked with this great artist that was a contractor. You should get to know them. And therefore, I'll reach out and just start a conversation with them, even if I'm not going to use them straight away. Like I've got loads of character artists that I've spoken to, I've linked up with on LinkedIn, I've looked at their ArtStation, etc. And then I've just got them on a holding pattern that I can call them up. And a lot of times I'll reach out and say, look, I don't need you at the moment, but I might need you in the future. Are you contracting? What's the sort of rates you're looking at? You know, you could tell me a rate now, but I will ask you again close to the time because I understand rates change, etc. And then I'll say, you know, these are the projects I have at the moment. I don't particularly have something for you. And also I have artists reach out to me and say, you know, I recently had a sound designer reach out to me and say, I want to do some sound for a couple of your things. And I'll say, well, look, I'm not hiring a sound designer at the moment, but I'm going to put you in my portfolio, my Rolodex as it would. And then I switch through and pick those people up as I go through.
Nice. Well, one of the things I want, well, actually, before I say anything else, if you're with us live watching, make sure that you enter the giveaway just by typing in the chat what race and class you want. I've got the battler in the corner of the screen. You'll join in, and then in half an hour or so, we'll kick off the fight. Whoever wins gets a 1-year rider license for free. I think I'm also gonna do a yeah. We'll give away one other thing too. I think I'll give away a Game Dev Guild T-shirt too. So I got a bunch of these T-shirts, so I'm gonna give away one of the T-shirts as well. So I'll do that to the second place winner, unless the first place winner already has rider and doesn't want it, then we'll switch. But yeah, so we'll go with that. We'll go a rider license and a Game Dev Guild T-shirt because I like the T-shirt and I've been wearing it all the time, and I figure may as well get at least a couple other people wearing the cool T-shirt. I wanted to take some questions though, unless you guys had more thoughts on the asset store stuff. Because I mean, for me, I love assets; they inspire me, and I think you guys hit all of the core things. I use them for problems that I have, and then I find assets, and then I start making a game and realize I shouldn't be making this game because I'm only doing it because the asset's really fucking pretty and cool, and I want to like inspired by it. So
That's my
go ahead.
favorite kind of assets are the ones that come with the demo scenes that are just you can just load it up and just play.
Run around.
And that's, I mean, my game The Barbarian famously is named The Barbarian because I found barbarian characters. The main overworld is the demo scene from Manufacturer K4's top-down environment or whatever it's called. And I expanded on it, but when I was at GDC playing that Take 5 or whatever it was, the T5
table.
Yeah, they had the exact same demo scene for the exact same reason. They just need a demo real quick, and that's like, I think any asset that comes with a game-ready demo, yes, it's asset flip, yes, people might recognize it, but how much time do you save by just loading up that demo and saying, okay, let me move on to the next
Yeah, well, you move on to figuring out if you're building the game, like what the fun part is, and then go back. You can always redo the level when you decide that you're at the point that this is going to be done, and not waste. I feel like a lot of times people will get into game development, and instead of doing any game development, they'll just build levels. They'll set up terrains and place things, and never get around to the parts of actually building a game or figuring out how to do that. They just focus on the easy part of, or it's not even easy. It's just easy to get started with part of laying stuff out. There was a question in chat that I think kind of relates to this, Andrew, about your 3D models. You'd mentioned using assets or getting assets until they got outdated, and somebody said, how do 3D models become outdated? Can you briefly explain that?
Yeah, there's two ways. The big way is like PBR, right? So 2015-ish, suddenly Unity 5 came out. Everything was like PBR by default. And most of the content on the asset store was not. The whole PBR, Infinity PBR, was my ploy on saying, oh, my stuff's all PBR, so I'm going to capitalize. It didn't quite work out that way, and now I'm stuck with it, but that's okay. That was a big moment where I remember like Protofactor, all their stuff is PBR now, but at the beginning it wasn't. And so if you wanted to use Unity 5, you had to update it. I actually had a package that allowed you to update legacy models to PBR with some fancy, just masking and stuff, which sold fairly well because there was a need for that at that moment. Otherwise, it's really just time. Technology gets better. Substance Painter comes out, and suddenly people can make better textures. Different styles change. Actually, one of the best examples that there was an old asset that just got re-released. It's like the big environment pack. And it was 10 years ago, 11 years ago. Yeah, big environment pack by Philip Schmidt on the asset store, if you can find it real quick.
I'm going to pull that one up.
So they just released big environment pack Reforged, which is basically the same package, but now modernized. So that it looks like they went through and just modernized the whole thing, and it looks gorgeous. And it was originally released 10 years ago. In fact, they still have the big environment pack available for $50 for some reason. And that one was released. The first release was 2012. So April 30th, 2012. So just under 10 years. And you can see the difference in quality. 10 years ago, their original one was top quality, and it's not anymore. And there's reasons. There's lots of reasons why. But now they've got a new one that's modernized, and that's where 3D models get outdated. They just have to stay up to date. One of the things I always do with my stuff, our textures are generally delivered in 4K. You don't need 4K. You won't need 4K for a while in most cases. But when you do need it, it's ready for you, you know? And that I think is, I think more publishers are starting to be a little bit more forward thinking in that regard, and planning for what could be in the future.
Okay, Andrew, that's a really nice. But why are we watching the Elden Ring trailer? I'm kidding. The scenes evoked the feeling of Elden Ring.
It does look very similar. So, Mr. Bubbles had a follow-up question on something we talked about earlier. I want to know if you can clarify what an extension asset is, or how that license works.
I can do my best.
Do they what is an extension asset license versus
It's like a
a
per
normal?
seat.
Those
So
are the ones
Odin-
where it says like how many seats do you want when you go to
Yeah.
check out. And if I remember right, and if anybody knows differently, you have to have one of those basically per developer using the project, or opening the project and actively working on it, right?
Using it. Yeah, using is the key word, and I think that's where the confusion happens. Because even as Mr. Rebel says, do we need to purchase one for artists that won't be using assets like Odin? No, you don't. But what does it mean to use it? Like, I don't know. I don't know, is it In Control or the other one, blanking on the name, the other popular controller asset, starts with an R, I think. One of them is per seat, one is not. And does it, if you're just manipulating the controls, like, are you a user, or is it everyone, including the game testers who are using a gamepad, is a user? And I don't know the answer to that necessarily. I think you probably have to, do your
research.
Do your research, and I mean, Rewired. There you go. Rewired is the other one. And just, if it feels like you should buy a license for it, then buy a license for it. Like, if it's just somebody who's not doing anything with it, you probably don't. But because they're not using it. But if you're concerned, if you think like, well, I'm kind of using it, maybe just buy the license. I don't know. But that's just my take.
Yeah, and it probably says more in the actual license files too, I assume. I don't know. I never read through them. I just buy for myself, so it makes it easier, a lot easier to deal with.
I do want to say something, going back to the question about how do 3D assets ever get outdated. There is actually a really good point to bring up regarding Unreal Engine 5 with this. The MetaHuman rigs are different from the mannequin rigs that were used in Unreal Engine 4. And they are the new standard, and they added a new mannequin that goes with the MetaHuman rig. So if you want to use the old animations on the new rig, you actually have to retarget them. Now, granted, both of these were made by Unreal, so it's deprecation by their side, but at least they added tools to retarget the animations rather easily from those two kinds of rigs. But that's an example of something that can change, even if it's not just a rendering technique update. And speaking of rendering technique updates, even with PBR, HDRP changed how you actually alter the PBR textures, so that you have to pack them together in specific ways. And that's something that the other pipelines don't use. So assets have to all update again if they want to support HDRP, which is why we have the big divide right now on the assets. So there's an asset version for HDRP, URP, burp.
Yeah, the auto update feature for that has been nice. From anything standard shader can be updated easily, but it's true. I remember when the Book of the Dead project came out and they had this mask map, and I was like, what the hell is a mask map? And it turns out it was just the roughness and metal all packed together in a certain way. I was like, oh, they should have named it better, because mask map doesn't, it's not. But anyways, so from that point on, I started exploring my roughness and metal map, which used to just be 2 channels, in that format. So I was lucky that they didn't change the way that was packed. So from that point on, all my stuff was compatible with HDRP out of the box. Not like characters, unless you're making something very specific for HDRP, there's nothing really to be done. It just has to be in that format, and it works just fine. But yeah, so.
Somebody here asked if, or Neil asked, I'm trying to stop saying somebody. Neil asked if Odin Inspector is worth it. I would say yes, it's definitely worth the price of admission, and we're also including it with the GameDev Guild registration. Oh, it's way back there, behind all the stacks of it. You see a 1-year Odin Pro license with your Pro registration. So if you want that, that's another way to get it. But yes, it's definitely worth it. Odin's like, if you're building a project, especially if you don't have to worry about licensing and a company and other people are outside, just like sending your project out to outside people, Odin's amazing. It just simplifies things so much. It adds a lot to the inspector to just make your workflow quite a bit easier. And whenever I work in a project without it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's part of Odin. I feel the same way. I want to mention this because Odin does that to me, but also when I accidentally open up a project in a really old version of Unity, I get the same thing. I'm like, wait, where's that? Where's that? Like all of the new functionalities and features that I try to use. Like, where'd that window go? Oh, where's this namespace? What the hell? And I realize, oh, I'm in like Unity 2019 or 2020.1 or something, some old one instead of the latest. But Odin is one that definitely is worth it, I think. You guys all have used it, I assume, or tried it, or thoughts?
I will say that using Odin is asking if you like Odin is analog to asking if you like smiling.
Ooh.
Like
Makes things easy.
there is such a day and night difference between having Odin and not having Odin in your inspector.
Yeah, Odin should make every flash sale.
I've used it only a little bit, but since I've released assets on the store, I can't use it for anything that I want to release, unfortunately.
That's what makes it hard for me is I don't use it in YouTube videos because I don't want to have to explain why my editor looks different all of the time. But when I'm building an actual real project, I'm like, yeah, let's put this in there because it's just going to make it easier.
I think that's the most annoying thing about making YouTube videos is you can't use any of your libraries or anything like that. You just have to go for the bare bones.
Yes, you got to keep it. You got to give them stuff without having a bunch of context that they need to already know. That's the hard part. You got to avoid requiring a bunch of prior knowledge for the video to make sense. It's like when you jump in like part 10 of the video, like nobody's going to watch that.
No.
You've had to watch 9 other videos before. So I never do series videos anymore.
And that should answer the people that have been asking me questions like, why don't you show us exactly what your library does when you mention in the video that this isn't going to be a complete thing that your library does? Because there's just not enough time to sit there, and nobody's going to sit for 10 hours watching how my hierarchy gets highlighted for certain things, because I've literally had to go through and explain each piece of the code. So no. I'll show you a little bit.
And then there's the hardcore YouTube channels that use the default Unity editor layout, which is like...
I've done that. I've put that up. Yeah,
I was referring to you in secret, yes.
Oh, right, okay. Because I've done it before where I've put something up and somebody's gone, where I can't find this part of the inspector. So it's like, yeah, okay. So I just put the default layout. It hurts. I don't go light. I stick in dark mode.
I left it on the light one forever just so people wouldn't ask me why it looked like Pro, why it looked different, and why they couldn't do it.
I can't. I'm keeping it dark because I have to watch it back in the dark at night when I'm checking what's happening. I don't want this bright monitor blaring at me. So.
2 things here. 1, be thankful that Unity has dark mode for everyone now. 2, Unreal Engine 5 does not have light mode by default.
Oh, wow.
There should be a light mode. There shouldn't be a light mode.
Everybody
should switch to the dark side. Be done.
I was watching Infenzia on YouTube trying Unreal 5, and he was going through the editor options, and he was like, editor skin, and it was only dark. There was only a dark option, and I just burst out laughing.
So we've got a question from Engage Online. I think that this is an interesting one related to assets, since we were just talking about it. It said, publishing an asset seems to require a demo scene, which I think Andrew said was the best way to have it. And they're not quite sure how could I demo my texture packer in a scene, because it's a texture packer. It's not an environment. Yeah. Any suggestions on how to do it? Have you guys seen any good examples of how to do like a tool with a demo scene? Like, how does that work?
With any tool that provides value, the goal is to just show the value. If you're packing textures, show one side textures not packed together, one side textures packed together. If you do the math and you pack textures, then an amount of draw calls regarding batching should be the 4 different textures versus the one draw call for the 4 textures when they're packed or whatever.
You'll put that into a demo scene?
Or a video. You could do a demo video for that type of thing. I think that's a marketing thing, really showing, oh, you went from X down to Y, and that's why it's so much cooler to use this tool. But if it's talking about like how to use it, then I would suggest making a video that just shows you quickly how to use it, and then in the project itself, assuming this is use the inspector or something to do the actions. Have some bare bones unpacked textures that people can walk through the video. So you have a video, have a simple guide, step-by-step guide that lets people do the actions in the inspector. So it's not really a demo scene per se, but rather a demo video and guide, text guide that lets people go through the actions of, here's some unpacked textures, do this, click that button, now you're done. That's how
Do you think
work.
that would get them around the demo scene requirement? I think that's like a new thing where they require a scene for it. I don't know if that's just
it's a requirement that you need a scene per se, but you need some sort of how-to, some sort of demonstration. I don't think it has to be a scene per se, because that doesn't make a lot of sense for, like, I don't know, audio.
Maybe like
why
a help
would you need a demo
window
scene
type
for
thing instead?
audio files? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I was kind of curious too. It's a little weird, like a demo scene there, but yeah. Cool. And then just a real quick note: somebody mentioned that they had an issue with WriterFlow where it had a 300 meg zip file. I did notice that WriterFlow had something where it seems to like bloat the project file size, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's just that package. I assume it's unintentional, but I have to check that out. I haven't dug too much into it. I've been using WriterFlow ever since, but I haven't actually dug into the code in the project yet myself. And Ian had a question earlier that I saved off and just wanted to pop up. Before I take it, though, let me just full screen this, make this thing bigger. I want to remind everybody that if you wanted to enter to win the giveaway, all you got to do is type in the race and class that you want. You'll pop up in the battler, and I'm going to kick that off in like 15 minutes. So if you want to win Writer or a GameDev Guild t-shirt, that's the way to do it. Let's go back to normal mode and then take this question. So quick question: how much do you think Unity should handhold us? I got burned using auto-assigned enums in Unity when I added a new item in the middle of the enum and deserialized. So much broke. That will definitely break. So yeah, if you're doing enums, you cannot insert things into the middle unless you are already assigning them values. You've got to give them values, go equals 1, equals 2, equals 3, equals whatever, then you can drop them in and change them. But you don't have room to put things or insert them in the middle. You still have to rearrange them and stuff will break. So it's an interesting question. I guess kind of two-pronged, one on the enum specific part. But how much do you think Unity should handhold developers?
A lot.
Yeah. Generally speaking, the engine is meant to make the life easier. So anytime you don't, it's just a waste of potential.
You got to think to the lowest common denominator. You've got very advanced developers using Unity, but then you've got absolute beginners using Unity who have never used the game engine, might have never coded before. So there needs to be this ability for Unity to handhold you all the way through, but the ability to switch that stuff off. Like if you load up some of the test scenes or even some of the templates that Unity gives you, they have this tutorial window now. And I wish they would do more with that and have the overlaid tutorials coming on for a lot of people, because the amount of questions you get from people wondering how to get into Unity. There needs to be the full spectrum of hand-holding going on.
Yeah. Specifically with recent projects, Unity, when they added the README assets that pop up every time you open the editor with those new projects, The initial version did not actually have any way to remove the README assets.
Yeah.
Now they have a button for it. This was one of the growing pains of coming from no tutorials to having a tutorial, and then people saying, "Yeah, I get the point. Please stop bringing up the tutorial every time I open the project." So it's an evolution of the culture of using Unity. But generally speaking, you want to be able to have all the bells and whistles and auto detection for everything that you're going to do potentially wrong, with the option to turn it off if you know what you're doing. And generally speaking, regardless of what kind of team you'll be working in, unless you work alone, there's likely going to be a skill gap somewhere, and there's going to be people who need some hand holding in one place and not the other. So it's going to be a slippery slope. Like, even on the technical level, if we're just looking at the enums, trying to detect if an enum changed between two versions of code and letting you know that you serialize things in one way, and do you want to update the serialization and you have a matching value for it, almost an impossible task. So yeah, it's not something that, like, even if they want to handhold you, sometimes it's not practical to be able to try those kinds of things.
I've been burned by that enum bug in a different programming language, and it made me realize I don't know of a single programming language that enforces you to assign values to enums. So Unity's not the only one at fault here.
Yeah, the only time I found myself ever having this kind of problem is when I specifically don't save the enum as the name value of it, which, it's a whole topic of itself. How, do you want to save by name? How do you know what to to load back into if you changed the name? It's a process.
And for a fun homework project for everybody, go look up the attribute flags and then look up enum numbering, because that's super fun.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair,
I'm not going to explain it. Just go do it.
For those who want to deal with flags at all, I have a very useful tip for you. 1 and then 2 times the smaller than symbol, and then the amount of bits you want to shift is going to be really, really helpful. I freaking hate. I'm going to spoil what the flag's attribute does.
Oh,
Nah, you know what? I'm going to do it in another way. When you're working with bits, and you want to be able to set every bit individually, if you're trying to pack them into an integer, you don't exactly have an access to integer bit free. So people start to do this crazy math in their head where they're trying to multiply values by 2 every time and figure out which bit they want. And I freaking hate when I see the 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, and all that. And sometimes it gets into the crazy values because you have 2.1 billion for the last bit. So don't do that. Instead, just write 1 and bit shift 31 bits. You'll get where you need to get to. It's such a simple thing to do that I hate when I don't see it. Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, it's a nice way to write. So you write the value equals that, and then the semicolon, right? Or
yeah, and
the
you
comma,
just
sorry, not
the first
semicolon.
value is that 0, 1, bit shift 0, 1, bit shift 1, 1, bit shift 2, 1, bit shift 3.
Yeah, so you
I
start
don't
with the
even have to
1
think
stays
about
the
it.
same. The 8 here would change from 0 all the way up to however many bits you
Yeah.
have. Just to clarify. And there's also a nice little thing to check a flag with the flags attribute. You can actually check if a flag is set nice and easily instead of having to try to figure that out yourself. My son actually asked me if binary was useful. He's 13, so he's still learning code. So he's like, is binary actually useful and stuff? I was like, it is useful. It's very valuable to understand the like. And he was like, well, when would you use it? And I was like, well, one case I use it all the time is flags, especially if I got to send data over the network. I use flags. Okay, so I had to go through like the whole explanation process. But it is something that I think you can kind of get into game development or programming, be relatively productive and not really understand. I think there's a lot of value in understanding it, but I think you can definitely get through without really even knowing what binary looks like or being able to decipher a simple binary little line of code or value, not code.
Generally speaking, in terms of convenience, only the optimizers are only ever going to use this. It's not going to matter to anyone who's actually working with an editor or anything else. It's like you don't care about how the data gets packed until you do, and the only spots where you do is serialization and sending across, which, you know, it's not free, so you tend to pack it down to the smallest unit sizes that you can, which again, it's an optimization. It's not something anybody cares about.
Yeah. And it used to be that you would optimize it because you're going over like phone lines, and your data bandwidth was super, super low. So you couldn't send a bool for everything. You had to send in as tightly packed data as possible, and then compress that down even more. There's a question from Engage online about considering my YouTube channel and online identity has a lot of old gaming content associated. If they want to make a new one around Unity assets, should they make a new or separate channel? I don't know about this one. I don't know if it's better to do like just a complete shift on a channel, like if you're no longer doing gaming stuff and other things and you're switching to a new thing, if it's better to just make that change and keep that existing audience there or something, or if it's better to make a fresh YouTube channel. I wish I knew the best answer for that. I don't really know. What do you guys think?
I'm not a
You're the-
YouTuber.
You're the biggest YouTuber out of the lot
Yeah.
of us, so
I faced the same question actually because a lot of my old stuff, which I've a couple times have gone through and kind of removed, but I think I probably need to remove more old stuff. I think it's fine to not, but really look at the content. If the sense is that people will look at your new content and then they'll look at your channel, look at your old content, and say ugh, and leave, then remove it and or start a new one. If you have some level of followers already, then you don't want to lose that necessarily. And that's where I was. I was like, there's no way I want to start a brand new channel because I had people who were looking at my stuff. I had links out in the wild that are going here. So, you know, and then of course, if you start in high school and you have weird names and you made a tweet once that maybe, you know, people wouldn't look nicely at now, then remove those things.
yeah. Also, if you're monetized, it makes a difference as well because getting monetized on YouTube is a small nightmare. So if you want to go through that hell again, unless you've got a massive following and you can just post about your new channel and they're going to switch over and add your new channel as well. But if you're not monetized and you want to go through the hell of trying to monetize a brand new channel, then best of luck with that one.
Yeah.
Actually, on that note, Patrick, do you have any videos regarding the game on YouTube?
Just the trailer.
And does that do well? Do you watch any people playing it on YouTube at all?
Yeah, I've been keeping up with YouTube Let's Players. It's been really fun. A few people are getting a lot of views. Really cool.
Sorry, I had to jump for a second. I'm ready to start the battler, by the way. I wanted to get 4 more people in. We got 5 minutes until 11:30. So if anybody else wants to join, pick a race class, just type it in there. You can be a rat wizard or whatever, and then we'll kick that off in just a second. Sorry, I'm out of breath. I had to run and get a dog, and I'm out of shape.
We're going to have to add a box class and a box character, and then you can put the box in a box.
Yes.
I think there were a couple more questions. Was there any questions that have popped up that I missed that you guys wanted me to jump on? There's one here about public properties versus public fields or variables, and wondering why they're better. Personally, I feel that they're better. It's just like a personal feeling.
So,
like if it's a field, it shouldn't be public. But go ahead.
It comes down to properties are not freely accessible. They have a limited access to either getting or setting what they are, and exposing only what you have to others helps keeping things cleaner in the end of the day. If your values get changed from the outside without any knowledge on your own end, you might not be able to update relevant information regarding that kind of thing. So, for example, if you try to set character health to 0, it doesn't necessarily mean the character has died, unless it goes through a method which can tell it, hey, your value reached 0, die. And this, if you have a public field, you cannot block the ability to just set the health to another amount. If you limit it via property, you can say this property only lets others know how much health I have, but if they want to deal damage, they have to go through the deal damage method or the heal method if they want to heal me. And that lets me limit the value to say the character's maximum health, if I have.
And in that case, the property is like get only property, right? Without a setter.
Yeah. And
So-
if you want, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, one of the things that my thought process when I was learning that concept, and I'm still trying to get better at doing this properly and whatnot, was thinking, originally I was thinking, well, I wouldn't do that. Like I wouldn't reduce the health randomly below 0. That's not something I would do. But the reality is, I wouldn't intend to do that, but I might end up doing that. And it's a protection against accidents. It's making things just more really focusing clean cut, saying this is the only way to do this thing. You have to go through this method, and it's just keeping yourself on your toes. And if you're working with other people, then assume that other people will make mistakes.
They will definitely misuse your code if you expose it.
Also, just remember that you 6 months away from now is not you. There's past you, and there's current you, and there's future you, and they're all going to hate you. So,
future me, I don't know, but past me is not so happy with me right now. Just kidding.
Yeah, and for these properties in general, I would say 90% of the time when I have public properties, they are get only. It's very rare that they're settable. And if it is settable, it's usually like some sort of an option toggle type thing. Like I'm switching between the modes, and there's absolutely no logic that occurs when I switch between the modes. Even then, I might still add and I probably would still add a set mode method and a mode that's readable or whatever the thing is that I'm trying to do. And just the main reason, again, like you already said, if you set health down to 0 doesn't mean they died. You add somebody else into your project, they try to kill your player by setting health down to 0. Things get weird, and then you spend the next 4 hours trying to explain to them how to actually kill a player properly, and then the next person comes on and joins the team and does the same thing, and you got to do it again. So minimize the surface area of your code and classes, and just only expose the stuff that you actually want people to use. Don't expose things that you don't want people to modify and change.
I do want to bring up one more thing regarding set-only properties. This is something that I rarely ever use, but Jason's story taught me something really interesting there, which is when you have a presenter that's only meant to reflect what kind of values your character has. Say if you have a health bar for the character health, you don't necessarily want to be able to ask the health bar how much health does it show right now. So when you have that kind of thing, you just want to be able to say, hey, health bar, have 5 health. You can make it a set-only property, and then you can make sure that nothing gets to ask that instead of asking the ground truth character, which has some singular flow advantages.
I've seen that happen many times, by the way, where people start reading the data that they want from the wrong place because it's exposed there, and you find whole sections of code that are reading the health, that's a very common one, reading the health from the health bar component instead of from the player component, because the person had a reference to the health bar, they didn't have a reference to the player, and they didn't want to think about it. They're just I'll just use that one.
Lazy.
Yeah. And just to clarify, why is that a problem? It's because the auxiliary objects that you give this information to might not keep it the same way, and they might even cheat, because if you have a game, say, where a boss is meant to defeat you, but only cinematically before you come back to the fight, it might set your health to 0 for 1 second, only on the health bar, the character still is perfectly fine and nothing happened, and then comes back to it. So if you don't work with the ground truth, you might start having problems.
Yeah, the health bar might be animating, and then suddenly you're picking up things partway through an animation.
And your whole game breaks because you modified the health bar.
Yeah, that's another thing. They then modify the health bar to give them the value. Go slap yourself on the wrist. And also, you might be testing down the line and running tests on something, and that health bar might not even be there because you might be not showing all the graphics for that particular test.
Yeah, having a single source of truth is the good way to do it.
I'm gonna make the battle big for a minute so everybody can watch and we can see what we've got here. It looks like lots of wizards, assassins, and paladins and necros. No berserkers and bards. I'm gonna buff the crap out of berserkers and bards next week. So anybody watching that comes back in next week, just be ready for those to win and pick the right one.
Or he
So,
might be lying.
Well, I might
So,
forget.
you can just do it right after the stream, but just for the sake of keeping with the theme, so next week we're going to have bard boxes, and they're going to have AI sounds that and also googly eyes that judge every single enemy that's in the scene. You know,
The
just
world needs more googly eyes.
yeah.
Yeah, I want to do some cool camera animations too. Instead of having it just show the thing out like sitting above when people are joining, have it like kind of pop up to each new person that joins and do like a little camera transition. I think it'd be a neat little use of Cinema Machine and stuff to set that up. Maybe make a little video on it. So let's see. We've got lots of questions in chat. I don't know which one I want to pop up. Here's one about Rider. I have no idea if Rider's IntelliSense works for USS and UXML. Are those things that you guys use? Do you use any file formats other than C#? Like, or what are the file formats that you guys use and care about?
C++.
You actually write C and C++ stuff? Is that for the Arduinos?
That's for all sorts of things.
Just for pain?
For game, for libraries, for different aspects of what you're going to do. And then you've got Arduino stuff that's on the separate side, and Java. And when you build a website, unless you're just using templates for your website. I mean, I do my own website.
You should use C# for everything. Use Unity for your website. Just generate it in WebGL.
And then just pop it on.
A website.
And then because you don't know how to do HTML or anything, you can't work out how to put it in your website.
That's true.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it has SIMD IntelliSense, and I think it also has... I'm not sure if it actually has Python, but I've been using Rider with Python for some stuff. I might be using the wrong one, though. There's PyCharm for it. Not sure, actually.
Yeah,
Somebody mentioned in the chat that it does. So
I'm not too surprised. I would expect it to work with a lot of things, but I didn't know either. There's something else that I wanted to... let's see. Before I pop it up, I'll just ask you guys. Somebody sent me their portfolio in an email yesterday or the day before, and it's just graduating from high school student looking to get into the industry and looking for some brutal, honest feedback on their portfolio. Are you guys up for that?
Sure.
Abusing this poor college student? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, just hopefully it's mostly just productive and useful stuff. But I think that that's definitely likely to be the case. So let me find it real quick. And I will pull it up and we'll go over it. Let me see.
What's their goal? To get a job?
Yes, their goal was to get a job. Did
they want you to show it publicly?
Yes, and I asked very clear, I asked if I can share this publicly, and they said yes, as long as you're brutally honest and hold nothing back. So
all right, Dave.
That's going to be the goal. And
did they know I was on this week?
What's that?
Did they know I was on this week?
We're the best one for it, so...
No. Here it is. I'm going to pull it up now. You guys ready?
Yeah, sure.
Pull it over to the screen. So this is the portfolio page. Keenan, a gameplay engineer in Philadelphia with more than 2 years experience. Okay, perfect. I haven't gone through this yet because I wanted to have this be like a fresh experience with you guys. So it looks like they've got a Unity certification, which I think is going to help. Specialize in combat system engineering, everything including enemy to player state logic, process building a plot armor studios regular. So far, I like it. I don't know how you guys feel about this little intro paragraph. I thought it was pretty good. It's just right to the point, gets into what they're focused on, and covers experience without going on and on and on about their favorite things and stuff. I like that part a lot.
I'd make bold things like combat systems, C#, the key words, so that people who skim it are just like, oh, combat systems, cool. That's it.
How much am I supposed to nitpick on this?
Brutally
a
honest.
lot, I think.
In that 2 years, is that even valid English?
Oh yes, yeah, I guess it should
It
be
is.
those
It's
2 years,
conversational.
Yeah,
or during
so
those 2 years.
It's friendly.
But yeah,
I mean, the grammar could be fixed up. The last line, I'm in the process of building. There's a better way to state that. You know, in the process,
have more-
you're not doing it or you're early, but you could say, I run Plot Armor Studios, publishing independent titles, which is much more,
yes.
So some people
And
are
I'd
asking,
probably
can you
put
show the
quotes
giveaway
around the
battle?
company name or something. Go ahead.
Sorry, people are asking, can you show the giveaway battle? I'm not sure if you care too much about that, but
Oh,
just want to mention.
it's still there too. I can't share 2 things at once though. It won't let me. So
Gotcha.
I gotta jump back and forth. There we go. Those are the people in the battle. There.
Still going.
We'll jump back and forth unless somebody else wants to screen share this. Then I can pop them both up and we can have like 8 windows up. But I think the giveaway would be small.
Not available for that at all.
So yeah, let's look at the rest of these projects. So it looks like there's a couple projects here with videos.
I have some gripes with, I guess, how it is presented. There's something weird about the spacing of every section and the colors, but it's not like it's a deal breaker at all. It's just something's weird about it. I'm trying to figure out exactly what.
I think it's just the
is going
green and
wrong.
white on black color scheme.
Yeah, for the starters, I was wondering whether it's the problem with the top being white bold and then the middle being green bold and the lines only being green. It's like some inconsistency that I'm not so sure about. It's nothing that's going to tell someone I'm not going to hire you. It's just it's less appealing on the eyes and less willing to make you stay on the site.
Yeah, I'm never a fan of like light white text on black backgrounds either. Like it's harder to read. It's a lot more painful on the eyes than dark text on a light background. It's so much easier to read. Or text that's bolder and bigger on a dark background. Like the thin, narrow text on dark backgrounds, I think makes people click away. At least it makes me less likely to read it. And I think it looks a little bit worse here in the stream than it actually looks on my screen too. So.
There is also something to be said about how it all looks pretty flat. There's literally almost no bells and whistles anywhere aside the icons at the top. And that's not exactly contributing to how much effort has been put into this. It's clean, I'll give it that. It's just all the useful information for actual hiring is at the bottom.
Is that where it is? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
But the problem I'm having with these videos too is there's so much going on. I'm having a hard time figuring out like what's what. I feel like if they were slightly sectioned off, like this is what this is, with the tiny 1 or 2 sentence explanation of what the thing is, it would.
So
make
if
a lot
you
more
hover,
sense.
you can see all the text, but it's white on white, so it's not giving you an easy time to read. And if you scroll down to the bottom. The first thing that's really awry here. Here's a skill section. There are no skills.
None. I would get rid of that.
Yeah. Don't put empty sections there. If you're using some blank template, don't. You can clean this up so it's a bit easier. Engines, Unity. You can say experienced in Unity somewhere and just not include this section as well.
Or just put Unity developer right after your name.
Or Unity in the tools. It's a tool.
Yeah. You've got Unity certified here. Yeah. This part should change a little bit. Photon multiplayer is a good one to call out too.
Another small thing here is that you have ship titles, work projects, and personal team projects, but the summary and the skill section don't get a title for themselves. They will be skipped upon if you're not looking at things cleanly. Because if I'm reading ship titles and everything up till now was images, previews of things, then I'm not going to be able to associate shipped titles to your skills, languages, engine tools, and disciplines that's right after. even though it's
I
the
thought
same
this was
section
a
when you
sitemap at first when I first saw it. I thought it
Yeah.
was like
Yeah.
the little click-through
Yeah,
sitemap that
that-
you see at the bottom of a page. So yeah, I think this should
Yeah.
definitely be rearranged. I also don't know how I feel about calling out Java, HTML, and CSS.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't know
markup.
that it adds a lot of. Maybe it does if you're doing a lot of WebGL stuff, but I don't know that it adds a lot, and can sometimes distract people because people will think that you do a lot of these things and not a lot of that. If you're mostly in C#, I'd probably just focus on the C# part and the parts that are actually the jobs that you want to get, so you don't end up with people contacting you about Java jobs and HTML stuff that you don't want to do.
Arcane Sin is in the chat. Oh, they're checking out my portfolio. So, hello.
Oh, cool. And
Yeah.
you're now awesome. Yeah, you guys got any other thoughts on this one?
On mobile, it's a bit wonky. There's a bunch of spacing on my browser. I don't know if you've checked it out on mobile.
I haven't yet. So.
But other than that, it's good. There's like just some blank spaces.
When was this last updated if he sent it to you? Because the date at the bottom says 2021. And we're already in April.
Yeah, so I would update that too. Or just get rid of the copyright date. You don't need to have the year there. Because then you got to remember to update it.
Also, on my browser, it lets me scroll down on the small Unity certification at the bottom, which feels kind of weird. Just show it in full.
Yes, that one right there. This.
Yeah.
Just bad.
You don't need that.
Space. Yeah, I just take that image and drop it somewhere else. I may put that even up at the top because, yeah, as much as I know, there's a lot of times certifications aren't super useful. Like, it definitely doesn't mean that you know how to make games, but it will definitely get you past some little barriers, HR barriers, and people who aren't super familiar with programming barriers that just see it like this is another notch. So it does help. Even with programming at the beginning, I think it helps. So having that, I mean, you haven't mentioned at the top, but just having that little logo up there definitely, I think, wouldn't hurt as well. We're down to 8 fighters left in the giveaway. If everybody can hit the thumbs up button and subscribe, that would be great. I don't know why I said it so weird and creepy, but yeah, go ahead and hit that. And then once this battle ends, we're going to be showing some cool assets in just a minute too. So
just one more thing. Apparently all the games, as expected, are clickable. And when you click them, it flashes the screen green weirdly and then shows you the project in more detail per the project. But some of them are showing like languages C# and some are C# and 3 dots, which is weird because you have a lot of space to write on. So I'm wondering why you decided to call it out immediately after one language.
Yeah, I think definitely. Oh, I see. I'm clicking. Sorry, I don't want to pop over the screen here, but I see the detailed pages, and these are much better. Make that obvious that those are clickable. Because as soon as this battle ends, I'll pop it up and we'll finish it. We've got Steven versus Phaedra, and then Alex up in the sidelines there. A Necro, a Wizard, and a Paladin left. Let's see who wins.
Oh boy.
Oh, it's a close one. Oh,
that was very
Necro.
close.
So we've got a Necro versus a Paladin in the final fight. Like I said, I'm going to buff the Berserkers and Bards next week. So winner here, I'll get the 1-year writer license, best code editor that I know of, and the loser will get a free t-shirt. So just send me an email at game.courses after the show, Jason at game.courses, and I'll get you both of those prizes. Let's see who wins it, though. I'm trying to watch. So Necromancers, for everybody who's watching and hasn't seen it before, have a damage like life tap, so I think they steal 5 life or something every time they hit, and then the Paladins have a heal over time, so they just constantly heal themselves and destroy everybody. So congratulations, Alex and Phaedra. Send me an email and I'll get you over those prizes. Let's jump back over to the details. So this was the details when you click through on one of these. This is what you were talking about. You all right?
Yeah. So when you jump into a detail page of any one of these projects, it's better. It's slightly questionable how much better, because the green flash isn't exactly helping. It's really weird when you try to shift back to the main page as well. And the buttons aren't exactly indicative that they're actually clickable.
I didn't know anything was clickable.
Yeah, if you go to the details page, there's a big GitHub button on the top portion on the right, but it doesn't look exactly clickable. There's a great talk about UX and UI design gems, and one of those, which I can heavily recommend, is that you want buttons to have rounded corners and fill color, because that indicates they're clickable. And ironically, the very first Cell Shocked details page has a button right above the GitHub, which shows you in filled color with rounded corners, download each other. It's like two buttons right against each other inconsistently. Not exactly confidence inspiring in the amount of effort that was put in.
I definitely go with better buttons.
So, yeah, good content. Like, you've got loads of good examples. So if you're looking for a job, you've got loads of good examples of your code. Great. You've got loads of videos and imagery for a portfolio piece. Awesome. You say exactly what you did on each of these projects. Exactly what I'd ask you in an interview. So all your content's there. The layout of this website and the color scheme and everything is atrocious. Go fix it. I don't like it at all. But outside of that, if I was going to hire somebody like you, then what I would do is I would come on here and I'd go through and I'd go, this person is a programmer. They've got stuff out there. They've shipped some titles. They've got examples. I'd look at your code. I'm looking at your pages. I'm downloading your links. You've got everything there. So I would ignore all the layout. And that's because I don't like the layout in this website at all, and the color scheme or anything around it. So yeah, that might tell you something. Go on a template site and look how some of the really nice templates are laid out. Go and look at how other good projects are laid out and all the rest of it, and just think to yourself, what am I doing with this layout? How am I getting my examples across? But all your stuff here is good. It's all there. It's everything I need to make an assessment of you. And that's exactly what everybody's portfolio should have. For people looking at this and going, oh, I'm not sure about the color scheme, we're nitpicking because that's what we do, and that's what we're
what's
asked
left to do, right? All the rest
That's
of
what's left to do, because the rest is good. You've got great content there. And yeah, you might be looking at it and thinking, oh, I don't like the way some of these things look. But this person's not an artist. This person is a developer. This person's somebody who's a coder who's putting this stuff out there. And that's what we're looking for when we look at these particular things. But yeah, I mean, you could buy a template off, I don't know, one of the many stores that I'm not going to publicize here.
Using Wix, they could just pick a different template off of there
and get a really nice consistent look and filter the whole thing, make it really nice and readable and flowable and all the rest. And suddenly you would have an amazing portfolio piece here because of the fact you've got all the content there you need to have. So that's my feedback for this person.
I just want to latch on and say you're exactly right about how it has everything that I want to read, and going on top of that, it has about 2 hours worth of reading because it includes code files, so you can actually see how the person approached making the things if you're going to work with them. They're confident enough to share how they work, which is a really, really good sign.
But I would never hire you as a web developer or a web designer.
I mean, to be fair, it was made with Wix, so it's not like it's had all the backend work for making anything high end.
Nobody would hire me as a web developer either, though. So
no,
probably most of us. It is a very different skill. My 13-year-old makes way better web pages than I do, in almost in an instant. I was like, I used to do this as a job. What the hell?
So just giving a priority list, because all of the content is great. It's just literally a matter of interactivity hints, then making the text a bit easier to read, both in terms of where is it included and how to get a flow of what to read at all. People don't know there's text to read on a hover if they don't ever hover on a specific element. Put a hint that there's something in there. A little eye icon with a circle helps a lot. And then lastly, just the color, make it a bit easier on the eyes. Look up, there are little palettes which are healthier for reading versus others.
Yeah, pick something pretty.
And you want to make the
I don't think
experience
you'll
of
have a
hiring you
hard time getting
pleasant.
it done.
So
And I dropped the link for that portfolio in chat. I'm going to drop it again if anybody wants to reach out to this developer and talk to them about a job. Go ahead and do that now. We've got the contact info. You've seen their stuff and seen everybody's opinions on it. So I wanted to wrap things up by mentioning Patrick's game again and having everybody go grab it, go try it out, see if you love it, see if you like it, and then come back next week and tell us about it, about that experience in chat. You want to briefly plug your game again real quick, Patrick?
Oh yeah. So it's a recursive puzzle game. You can see it to this side of me. I got it right the first time. It just came out a week and a half ago. It's a puzzle game that is mind bending, but has a friendly difficulty. And I think Jason has just posted a link in chat.
And it's built in Unity. People will be excited to see another game built in Unity. And I think if you're curious how he built it, go back through the first hour and listen. There's a lot of interesting things and some surprising stuff. I was kind of surprised by a couple of the things that you mentioned on how you built it and the whole custom render pipeline and stuff. I think people would be interested and would learn something from watching and hearing that part. And then Dave, you've got a video here, right?
Well, firstly, Patrick's Powerbox Game of the Year 2022. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, get it, grab it on Steam, and leave a positive review. You like the game, go leave a nice detailed review about why you like it.
And then tell me once you've beat 145 levels, because that's about where I am at the moment. So, yeah.
145, wow.
Yeah. 145 speedrun coming.
I love this. Yeah, so on the side of that, the video this week is something that I know a couple of people have been waiting for. It's raycasting in the scene view for use in editors. So I show you how to raycast in the scene view with a little navigation thing and some pretty assets and everything, just to show you how to do that for.
And you've got the nice, pretty intro now too, to show the fancy, flashy part of what's coming.
Yeah. I changed it around because everybody was complaining.
That's for everybody. If you have a YouTube channel, don't start with a default trailer. Start with the fancy, flashy thing. And if you have a default intro thing, put that after. Do the first 10, 15 seconds. Show what's in the video. Otherwise, people will skip ahead and they will skip the first couple words you say, get lost, and lose the video. That's what happens.
So next up, look up enticement in game design.
Yeah. But I'm not a big YouTuber, so I've been doing it other ways. But now I am doing it the right way. So that video's out there now. Go give it a look, see what people think, go have a play. And there's videos going up nearly every week now for mainly editor tips on how to build tools and all the rest of it. So go and enjoy.
Not surprising from a tools programmer.
Ex tools programmer.
An ex. Divorced from the tools department.
Because I get so many recruiters asking me if I want to become a bloody tools programmer again. I'm like, no, I'm done. Like, tools programming was back in 2003 for Sony, and I'm not a tools programmer.
Yeah.
I build tools. I build tools, and I make my life easier by building tools every day. But I am not. That's not my job.
You don't want to go build tools to make other people's lives easier anymore.
No, I'm good at being a designer, and everything else now thanks all the same. But yeah,
he's teaching people to make their own tools so we can sit in peace.
Yeah, basically, learn, make your own, leave me alone. So that's the video that's up this week.
Nice. And I also linked your coffee page. It's right up here. People can go see your background. I assume they tip you, they get a free TI card, a 2080 Ti from your wall or something.
Not a chance. Those are Titan X's. I don't loan myself to 2080 Ti's. What?
Your beautiful AMD video cards.
Yeah, that's the one. I put up a Ko-fi page after somebody asked to donate to it, and that person donate to it, and then nobody else. So that was great.
Well, I'm planning on
who's beautiful.
I'm getting it next. So if you want to go support Dave's stuff and get him to do more things, just drop something on there and tell him what to do. Say, make me some tools and make my life easier.
I don't do requests. Do it out of love, nothing else.
No, only through the polls, right?
Only through the polls. And those videos are already made when I put up the polls for each tutorial.
Yeah.
Because I am not forcing myself to make one in the week.
And then
next up, I'm
Andrew.
looking for your. Yeah, go on.
Oh no, I was just gonna share Andrew's monster pack. Did you have anything else that you wanted to share real quick with everybody before we drop out?
No, there's the sales. There's two major sales a year that are usually the biggest times, the best times to buy stuff, and this is one of them. So if you've been looking at my stuff, like the giant, expensive character complete pack, this is the time to buy it. I have no idea if it will ever be cheaper than 50% off. Maybe at one point, no idea. But now's the time. So the flash deals are there, and then once the actual sale starts, all the 50% off assets will be visible, I'm sure.
Okay, then they'll all start showing up. So it's not just all these things that are 80% off. There's going to be a bunch of other things.
So I know I've got like a hand of 10 products that are a couple monster bundles, and those are already discounted from their regular price. So the monster bundles are the way to go for those, and 50% off. It's a huge deal still.
Nice, and I've got all of those linked down below in the description, so you can go through and check those out. And then I think Yorai was mentioning next week we'll get around to talking about Unreal 5. So have an interesting discussion about that.
For those who didn't get to hear about it, Unreal 5.0 released. So there's a gigantic changelog with a bunch of really awesome things that I wish Unity would have. And I really wanted to talk about it, but it's going to be next time. So assuming I'm present.
Yeah, we'll talk about it next week. I think we have time. It's weird how we can go for 3 hours and still just have plenty of things to keep talking about. Like it's nice, I guess. I just briefly wanted. Go ahead.
I just want to say Patrick's game is really interesting. So, yeah.
Yeah, made for easy, good content to talk about. Right? So the last thing I wanted to mention was the GameDev Guild way up in the corner there. I dropped the link in chat. It's in the description too if you're interested. Just an online game dev conference for Unity developers. It's all focused on Unity stuff and all focused on being relatively actionable. The goal is just to have super actionable stuff so that like after each session, at least my hope is that after each session or at half of the sessions at least, you come out with something that you want to go like play with and experiment with. Like when I was at GDC, I saw Rider Flow. I wanted to go back to the hotel and play with it. I was like resisting the urge to go back, and I want this to be the same. The talks to be things like that. Like Thomas is doing a great talk on how to get published, or actually I think we might do a different one on 2D and 3D games, and Nick's doing one on game jams, and we've got some Unity people talking about some new Unity stuff there. If you're interested in that, please just check it out, GameDevGuild.com. All right, I think that was it. I don't have anything else. Do you guys have any final words, or should we say goodbye and then drop everybody over to the new video about the best stuff coming out on the asset store?
Just thank Patrick for coming out. All good.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. That was fun.
Thank you very much, Patrick. And everybody go check out the game. Go grab it. The link is down in the description below. And I guess we'll see you all next week. So, bye.
Everyone.
Yeah.